Report. 70%. Chapter 26. Retire safely and declare war on the Tianlong people. He himself didn't want to commit murder. On the Navy side, there is no general to command, and the morale of the army is scattered. In order not to suffer greater losses, they can only give up one ship. Then, all the criminals triumphed all the way and sailed in a certain direction. 2 hours later, a Kainu was finally found. He was not dead. Although he was seriously injured, he regained his momentum after resting for a while. Looks worried though. Renault, this kid must be eradicated. Otherwise, the world will never have peace. Tell the news to the Navy headquarters immediately. I don't know what surprises you will bring me in the future, Renault. Soon, after this battle, the world government posted a hunting order. Renault, bounty, 10 billion, regardless of life or death. The portrait on the arrest warrant is a dark-haired young man who looks gentle and approachable. The Navy spared no effort to send a large number of forces to hunt down Renault all over the world, and even paid a high price to buy his news. However, Renault seemed to be incognito, and has since disappeared. And there is an additional organization in the world, called Order, and its slogan is, "The rules of all things return to me." Although most people don't know what this sentence means, it does not prevent this organization from attracting a large number of Devil Fruit ability users to join. Because they protect people who are being hunted by the Navy. As long as they haven't committed any unforgivable crimes, they can be found somewhere in the Windless Belt, and together they can rescue those persecuted Devil Fruit users. Although the Navy had heard of the name of this organization, and dispatched admiral-level existences to investigate, they found nothing. Even when they got to the fjord mentioned by a certain spy, they didn't find anything. It was as if this organization would move, and every time the Navy fleet arrived, it would slip away quietly. I can only give up. After all, the Devil Fruit ability users who can maintain order are only a part of it. Many people are secretly speculating what the purpose of this organization is, but they are all at a loss. If it is to establish a powerful new force, why is there never any other activity? If it's just a simple rescue of Devil Fruit ability users, why can they do this? It seems that there is a person behind, who is promoting the development of everything. Finally, 3 years later, Dumandria. This country is located in a mild climate zone, and its products are very rich, and there are even several rare minerals. With so many resources, Dumandria should have been a rich country. In fact, Dumandria is still struggling with food and clothing. There is no other reason, but because most of the items purchased have to be handed over to the world government as the heavenly gold, ruled by the Tianlong people. Even, because of the mild climate here, those Tianlong people who disdain to breathe with ordinary people will occasionally come here for vacation. And on this day, go, slave, be careful, I will kill you. An obese man was sitting on a cart powered by people, laughing loudly, and waving a whip from time to time, hitting the man pulling the cart. The people around seemed to be used to Sikong. They hurriedly stopped all movements, knelt down and kowtowed, no one even dared to look up. The fat man's hairstyle was very strange. His bangs and hair were combed into an upright shape and rolled up at the end of the hair. Wearing a white jacket similar to a space suit, his fat body looks even more bloated. And a bubble air mask over the head, in which all breathing is done, shows that they are not hired by the arrogant idea of lower people breathing the same October air. These exquisite and exaggerated configurations indicate the identity of this obese man, Tianlongren. And next to the car pulled by the man, there were several bodyguards in black suits, who looked meticulous and dedicated. The most exaggerated thing is, in the hands of Tianlongren, there are still a few iron chains. On the iron chains are a few scantily dressed women, with a sluggish look, slowly following. But on a certain towering building in this street, there are a few figures standing, looking at everything below. Is this the celestial dragon man? It's really disgusting enough. A young man snorted coldly, his eyes full of disdain. That's right, this is the race that has ruled the world for almost 1,000 years. Look at their appearance, Jesse, if not for their power, what is the difference between them and a stupid pig? The young man next to him watched, but his eyes were full of indifference. The young man has black hair and a plain face, but he has an inexplicable affinity. It is Renault who has disappeared for 3 years. Renault continued. Power should have been an accompaniment to strength, but the profound background of the Tianlong people has allowed the strength of the strong to serve them for so long, and even turned the cart before the horse, turning themselves into a group of ugly and dirty silverfish. Suddenly turned around again. Any thoughts? Jesse was silent for a moment, then shook his head. I just think that this kind of thing shouldn't happen. At least, it can't happen in front of our eyes. Victor, who had been silent beside him, also snorted coldly. If the strong bully me, I will only feel annoyed. But being ridden on the head by these puny wretches, I'll kill him right away, and kill myself. This world should be ruled by the strong, and then be sympathetic to the weak from top to bottom. Instead of a group of weaklings riding on our heads. Renault nodded at 860, but didn't say anything, but looked down. The rickshaw of the Tianlong people knelt and crawled on the ground for a while, as if it bumped into something, it staggered and fell to the ground, and accidentally touched the surrounding crowd, causing a crowd exclaimed. As a result, many people looked up. Although he quickly lowered his head again, he couldn't escape the eyes of Tianlongren. Hey, what are you pigs doing alone? Your dirty eyes have insulted me, and you must all be executed. As he spoke, the bodyguards beside him all stood up. In their eyes, this is definitely not a joke. Because it is very common for Tianlong people to kill people when they are unhappy. The surrounding people trembled when they heard the words, terrified. But no one dared to move. Because once you disobey the Tianlong people, your family will also suffer. Just when the bodyguard was about to make a move, a magma fell from the sky and burned it into 10 charcoal bodies. And the dragon man was so scared by this scene that he peed his pants that day. Several figures descended from the sky. A black-haired young man in the lead, under the watchful eyes of everyone, slowly stretched out his palm, and pulled out the heart of the Tianlongren as if picking something up. Tell the Holy Land Mary Joa, I will visit in a few days. Report, 70%. Chapter 27. 5 Old Stars and Preparations for the World Conference. Holy Mary Joya. It's a place name, located at the peak of the Red Earth continent. It is also the seat of the world's highest power, 5 old stars, and the world government. The world's noble, dragon people, live on it. And provoking the Holy Land of Marijoya is undoubtedly declaring war on the Tianlong people, and even making an enemy of the entire world government. The news quickly spread to all parts of the world as if it had wings. Everyone is talking about it. And at this moment, San Marie Joya, in a splendid and miraculous building. In a certain room of this building, various halls were filled with people, and the number actually looked like 50 or 60 people. They are gorgeously dressed and have an extraordinary temperament. Although they live in a place where only Tianlong people can live, their dresses are obviously very different from that exaggerated style. And they were talking about something. This world meeting. Why did even the 5 old stars mobilize collectively? Don't you know? Something big has happened. What's the big deal? It is said that, before the whispering of several people was halfway through, the 5 elderly people in the center of the meeting room suddenly coughed lightly, and the whole scene stopped abruptly and became quiet. An old man in a black suit, with curly white hair and a flat hat said slowly, I think everyone has a lot to say about this world conference, right? However, the crisis that our Holy Land Maria is facing now is much bigger than your little things that don't pay the heavenly money. A light screen was unfolded in midair, and this scene was played on it, and everyone's eyes looked over. The screen shows that several people descended from the sky and beheaded a parading Tianlong nobleman on the spot, using the bloody way of pulling out his heart. And killing a world noble like this is obviously declaring war on the world government. Is there anything wrong with these people? Provoke the nobles and just execute them. A strong red-haired man with a height of 4 or 5 meters sneered, his tone full of disdain. I just don't know whether it is aimed at those young people or the Tianlong people. Regarding this, all the members remained silent, only Wu Laoxing frowned slightly, expressing displeasure. However, at this critical juncture, the old man in the black suit didn't say anything, pretending he couldn't hear the irony, and said directly, if it was that simple, I'm afraid this world conference wouldn't be so tense. Look, as he said that, the picture on the light screen changed. It turned into an extremely violent battle. Of the 2 people in the picture, one is Admiral Akainu, and the other is the black-haired young man who beheaded the celestial dragon on the spot. On screen, the abilities used by Admiral Akainu and the youth belong to the same, magma fruit. Even at the last moment, the youth summoned a bright red poisonous titan, completely defeating Akainu. Even though I just watched the video, my heart was still incomparably shaken. 2 fruit abilities, beat the Admiral head-on. This strength is enough to shake the world government. Even if it cannot be overthrown, it is enough to cause a major earthquake in the world structure. The old man in the black suit pondered. This was originally a top-secret image of the Navy. But now I have to show it to everyone. The black-haired young man in the picture is named Renault. What do you think? After a moment of silence, a delicate and charming woman said seriously, if it is true, then this guy must treat Ya very carefully. It's nonsense, but someone took the lead, and the rest of the people expressed their opinions one after another. Renault hadn't heard the name before. That's right. We have a navy, so what are we afraid of? No matter how powerful he is, he can't deal with all of us. Everyone looked confident. After all, there is the most powerful organization in the world. The Navy sits in command, and they are used to being protected. RB. Seeing that everyone had the same idea, the old man in the black suit waved his hand suddenly. Akainu, tell me. A tall figure suddenly stood up in the corner and stepped forward. It was Admiral Akainu. Akainu walked to the center of the conference room with a serious expression on his face. In the past 3 years, he didn't seem to have aged much, but his complexion was a little colder than before. Renault is strong and is improving fast. Akainu narrated. The first time I met him was on a certain island. At that time, he showed his devil fruit ability and refused to join the Navy, so he was arrested by me. At that time, his ability was to summon certain plants to fight, and his strength was weaker than mine, and he was restrained by my ability, so I captured him and sent him to prison. But, just a few days after I sent him to prison, he escaped with a group of convicts. Not only has the same magma fruit ability as me, but even my strength has skyrocketed to the same level as mine. In the end, he used Magellan's poisonous fruit to defeat me. Akainu spoke, and everyone who listened was shocked. In a few days, his strength has skyrocketed to the level of Admiral. Also has 2 fruit abilities. Now 3 years later, how terrifying will Renault's strength be? The old man in the black suit had a cold face. The most important thing is, the organization, order, where the dragon can't see the end seems to have a great connection with Renault. Everyone thought for a long time before reacting. On the day Renault escaped from prison, he also saved a large number of devil fruit users. This style of behavior is quite consistent with what order does. God knows how many devil fruits order has found in the past few years. Someone was secretly startled. So, we have to be fully prepared. The old man and the red dog looked solemn. After a few days, Wang's the edge of the Red Earth continent. A huge fleet sailed towards the county with great strength and mightiness. At a glance, the scale of this fleet is extremely large, with hundreds of ships alone. But relatively speaking, the number of people on board is much smaller, and the total number is only more than 1,000 people. A boat headed by it had a flag with a logo printed on it that appeared to be some kind of grass plant. And Renault is standing at the bow of the ship at this moment, looking at the red soil continent that can already be seen on the skyline, staring at it for a long time, then suddenly turned around and shouted, "All ships, slow down." Yes, the sailors took orders and ran down to convey the order without asking why. In the blink of an eye, the fleet, which was still sailing at high speed, has slowed down, as if floating on the sea. And this mighty fleet, driving near the edge of the Red Earth continent, also attracted the attention of the Navy. Report. 70%. Chapter 28. The Red Earth continent, the curtain of the war. San Marie Joya. They are coming. They are approaching the Red Earth continent. Wu Laoxing was in the conference room and was the first to receive these messages. They deliberately slowed down. Did the Chinese Navy arrive? This is provocation. Damn it. Arrange the Admiral, take all the naval forces, and go to stop it. Be sure to stop it outside the Red Earth continent. The Red Earth continent is where the Holy Land of Mary Joya is located. It has not been passed by unauthorized persons for thousands of years. And today, for the sake of the world government's face, they have to stop the enemy outside at all costs. At this time, the edge of the Red Earth continent. The fleet in the depths of Renault is about to reach the edge of the Red Earth continent, and the naval fleet is also long overdue. The area of the Red Earth continent is so large that they have no way to garrison all the edge positions and can only arrange more garrisons near the Reverse Mountain and Mermaid Island. At this moment, all the navies were called up and rushed to this place. Of course, the strength of the Navy headquarters still needs to be dispatched. By the time they arrive, I am afraid that Order's fleet has already landed on the island. But, the large force of the Navy 170 Army needs time, because their speed can only rely on ships. And the strong one can glide on the sea surface at a very fast speed. Before the large naval forces appeared, 3 terrifying figures rushed over. Before seeing anyone, the overwhelming aura has already arrived. At this moment, all the fleets dropped anchor, as if they had been waiting for this moment for a long time. 3 figures flew over at high speed, and then stood on the leading ship. The leader, wearing a pair of frog glasses, has a long beard tied into a twist on his chin, and a military cap. He looks calm and unfathomable, like a quaint Buddha statue. Among the 2 around him, one is the one who has fought against Renault a long time ago. And the other is tall, wearing a white suit vest and a dark blue shirt. Wearing a navy coat and wearing a green eye patch on his forehead, he looks a bit lazy. Renault, take your fleet and leave, and we can pretend this never happened. The leading man spoke, although the content was soft, but there was no hint of humility in his tone, as if he was conveying someone's order, not his own will. Renaud stood at the bow of the boat and smiled slightly. Master Zhongguo. I have heard of your reputation for a long time, but I didn't expect to say such a thing. If you really want to negotiate with me, then let the pigs in the Holy Land Marie Joyari roll down and kill themselves, maybe I may stop. If not, then I have nothing to say. Sengoku's face was calm, and he was silent and did not answer when he heard the words, but Akainu who was on the side couldn't help it. You bastard, you are so arrogant. Marshal, we have 3 people, we will not lose to this kid at all, let's give an order. As the Admiral of the Navy, Warring States is naturally more calm. Although facing a criminal, like Renaud, he is not in a hurry to act and is looking for a peaceful solution. Of course, he has long believed in his heart that Renaud is a villain, who dares to fight against the world government, and he is on the list that must be eliminated, just because the opponent's strength is unfathomable. Can't act right away. While Sengoku was still thinking about it, Renaud shot straight into the sky, and an arrogant laugh echoed in this sea area. You 3 generals gathered together and are still considering whether to fight or not. Is the Navy just such a bunch of cowards? As he said that, a stream of lava emerged out of thin air, pouring towards the 3 generals from top to bottom. Renaud actually chose to take the initiative to fight against 3 generals at the same time. Zhongguo was taken aback, and quickly turned around to avoid the attack of the lava rush. At this moment, his heart was ups and downs. One reason is that Renaud dared to take the initiative to attack. Although the attacked CGDJ was completely painless, it showed that there was no room for maneuver in the matter, and it was going to be a tough fight. Another reason, that is, the magma ability used by Renaud is exactly the same as Akainu's ability. How appalling is this? Even if he is the admiral of the Shenwei Navy, his strength stands at the peak of the whole world, and he has never heard that one person can obtain the devil fruit ability that others have already obtained. In any case, Zhongguo suppressed the horror in his heart and turned his attention to the battle situation in front of him. The 3 admirals are all peak powerhouses, and they have worked together for many years, and their cooperation is very tacit. Therefore, without any explanation, they formed a triangular formation, enveloping Renaud indistinctly. Buddha Shockwave, Ghost Dog, Ice Cube, 2 thorny spears. In an instant, 3 attacks came from 3 directions. Every attack contains unimaginable power for ordinary people. It's more powerful than I imagined. Renaud smiled slightly. The 3 attacks came from 3 directions, so it was basically impossible for him to dodge. He could only choose a weak attack to break the situation. You are the one. Lava punch, go. Renaud's arm suddenly turned into lava, and it soared hundreds of meters away, smashing hard on the flying spikes of ice. Although the 2 ice spears were restrained by the magma system's ability, they still pierced into the lava fist for nearly 100 meters before gradually melting away. Aokiji. It's really powerful. Every admiral should not underestimate him. After melting the ice spear, Renaud calmly flew towards Aokiji's place, dodging 2 attacks, and prepared a counterattack on the other side. Come and try my new move. Musket. Renaud laughed, and the lava arm suddenly transformed into a nozzle, and Mr. Chi was beating faintly, as if he was brewing something. Not good. Very powerful attack, be careful. It has to be avoided, it cannot be resisted. Just because of the power and influence, the 3 admirals felt the astonishing power in it, and all of them changed their faces greatly, feeling terrified. And the moment they were startled, the attack in Renaud's arm was finally released. I saw that the magma arm shrank suddenly, as if it had been sucked clean, but suddenly it was refilled and expanded, and finally 3 red spears of fire spewed out from it. Boom. 3 fire spears flew towards the 3 generals at an unbelievable speed, but in the end they only hit one. You seem to be a lot stronger. Akainu looked at the right arm that had been pierced and severed by the fire spear, with a surprised expression on his face. I have to admit that although Akainu was the first capable person to obtain the magma fruit and used it to the peak, but in terms of strength, I am afraid that he is not the current Renaud's opponent at all. Report. 71%. Chapter 29. Akainu's astonishment, facing the 3 Navy generals. It's only been 3 years. At the beginning, if Renaud had not possessed 2 kinds of devil fruit abilities, he would not have defeated Akainu so easily. But now, facing Akainu, Renaud can crush him head-on with just one ability. In this regard, Akainu is both disbelief and frustration. As an admiral, he has always been very proud. Unexpectedly, at this moment, I felt a gap like a natural moat. Akainu, cheer up. You are a general, you can't back down. Seeing Akainu's frustration, Sengoku immediately frowned, and while coping with Renaud's violent attack, he issued a reminder. I'm sorry, Marshal. I'll be back in action right away. Akainu was shocked, but still gritted his teeth. As an admiral of the Navy, he will naturally not fall down easily. Although an arm was broken, it was an elementalized limb, and it could be recovered with a little use of ability. Akakin snorted coldly, and his right arm was filled with endless magma. Afterwards, shout out every day. Die, meteor volcano. In an instant, endless lava flowed on Akainu's limbs. He raised his fists high, and launched the lava fist into the sky like raindrops, and then locked Renault's figure together. This move is his strongest attack move. Each lava punch can easily destroy a ship. And with so many lava fists combined, even an island can be easily destroyed, and even form a real volcano. Yes, compared to 3 years ago, you have also improved. Renault smiled slightly. He could feel the aura of the lava fist, but the smile turned cold instantly. But it's not enough. As he said that, Renault let out a long shout, and made exactly the same movements as Akainu. His arms turned into lava, and then his fists turned upwards, ejecting countless lava punches. The lava fist slammed into the sky, and collided with Akainu's attack, causing several violent explosions. Boom, boom, boom. Just like a real volcanic eruption, the hot and bright red magma was shot into the sky, then cooled rapidly, and after falling apart, it was broken into bits of dust, floating in the sky. The volcanic ash that covered the sky instantly covered a range of hundreds of miles around, and it was still spreading outward, even the sun was covered. Just fighting with one move is as terrifying as the doomsday. The people on the ship below couldn't help but gasp when they saw it. This level of combat, is it really human? Then, a young man on the boat suddenly frowned, turned his attention away from the sky, and turned to the western skyline, where a row of black dots appeared. His eyelids jumped, and he shouted. The Navy is coming. The great force of the Navy has arrived, everyone, ready to fight. In an instant, hundreds of ships and more than 1,000 Devil Fruit ability users all approached together, forming a team, quietly waiting for the arrival of the Navy Army. These Devil Fruit ability users, all of them were saved by Renault in the past 3 years. Either they were imprisoned, or they were forced to join the Navy, and some even had their family members slaughtered because they did not obey the management of the Navy. Each one is miserable. They have a natural hatred for the Navy. And until the Tianlongren's cruelty and incompetence, they were filled with righteous indignation. Therefore, this battle is not only for overthrowing the rule of Tianlong people, but also for personal revenge. Although their number is very small, compared to the large force of the Navy, it is not even 1% of it. But all of them are Devil Fruit capable users. Everyone's abilities have been guided and trained by Renault, and they can completely defeat 100 with one. Some people even have the strength not inferior to the Rear Admiral. Of course, the real battlefield is still above the sky. Powerful. This is the only evaluation of Renault by the 3 admirals. Because compared to his other qualities, this characteristic at this moment gave them the greatest pressure. Although under the pressure of the 3 admirals, Renault seemed a little hesitant and embarrassed, but he was not defeated. But even so, there was a little shock in the hearts of the 3 of them. How can you hold on for so long? Too powerful. They thought that with their own strength, they could last less than 3 minutes under the siege of the 3 admirals. But Renault, although he showed a disadvantage, he did not mean to be defeated at all. This toughness and strength shocked them. Ask for flowers, 0. Then there is more killing intent. This kind of enemy must be killed. Otherwise the most powerful enemy of world governments and navies. Enough is enough, let's call it a day. Suddenly, the sound of warring states shook, and he retreated hundreds of meters away. At the same time, he and Zhu Tian also retreated. Are you finally going to show some real skills? Renault smiled and waited quietly. The actions of the 3 are exactly the same, obviously some kind of secret technique. Renault didn't hide or dodge, just stood there and waited, as if waiting for some wonderful performance. Renault, I know you have a second Devil Fruit ability. If you don't use it, I'm afraid you will die here today. The whole body of warring states is like pouring gold, exuding golden light, and the voice is like a bell, resounding and penetrating. 0. Here is his fruit ability. The fruit of everyone is in the form of a giant Buddha of phantom beasts. Can become a huge golden Buddha statue. Get the power, wisdom and spirit like a Buddha, combine a huge body like a Buddha with a smart mind and perfect skills, and make yourself an ultimate person with both mind and body skills. Oh, is it? If you want to see it, you might as well show some real skills and stop scratching it like you did before. Renault smiled, showing no sign of fear. HMPH, arrogance. Sengoku, Aokiji, and Akainu raised their hands at the same time, and a strong air current was pushed out from their palms, sweeping towards Renault. Armed color domineering. If it's just armed domineering, you can retreat. Seeing this, Renault shook his head, and magma emerged out of thin air, forming a shield around his body. The armed domineering pushed on it, destroying the 3 to 4 meter thick lava shield, but still failed to penetrate and attack Renault in the center. Armed color domineering, known as the nemesis of elemental devil fruit. Although it can make many non-devil fruit users have powerful power, and even deal with elemental devil fruits, it is still very difficult to cultivate them to a high level. And the 3 admirals spend most of their time practicing devil fruit abilities. Although their 3-color arrogance is far beyond ordinary people, if they want to break Renault's face shield. Class. Report. 71%. Chapter 30. Breaking through the 3-person alliance, showing the 3rd ability. As soon as the words fell, Renault felt a shocking force reverberating in his heart. This is. Feeling the coercion like a mountain falling, Renault resisted the feeling of weakness all over his body, and slowly said in his mouth, Overlord-like domineering. Domineering color domineering. It is the rarest kind of domineering. This kind of domineering is different from armed domineering and knowledge color domineering, and cannot be acquired through acquired practice. It is said that among 1 million people, only 1 genius can possess this rare domineering existence. And a person with this kind of domineering will be considered to have kingdom qualifications. Without a shot, he can intimidate, deter and stun enemies with his own spirit, and he can also feint opponents who are much weaker than himself. If domineering reaches the upper level, it can achieve the effect of coercion. Just like the July 13th that Renault endured now, the chilling coercion. However, only the action remained unchanged. Renault still didn't plan to make a move, and waited quietly. With such a big battle, what kind of attack are you guys planning? I'm looking forward to it. In midair, Zhongguo's face changed slightly, and he shouted, Quick, I've pinned him down, now he can't walk, let's use that trick together. Aokiji and Akainu nodded slightly, good. Before the words fell, the 3 of them shot together. The previous armed domineering attack and domineering coercion were all foreshadowing the combined attack of the 3 of them. In midair, the 3 admirals present a triangle, enclosing Renault within it. They all held out both palms. Then, Aokiji and Akainu sprayed a large amount of magma and frost, forming a huge sword blade in midair. The blade of the sword is about 50 or 60 meters long, and its body is made of ice, but traces of hot magma wrap around it like decorations, injecting an inexplicable flavor into the sword. What is surprising is that although they form a whole, the magma and ice cubes have not merged, and there are continuous bursts of small explosions on their intertwined boundaries. And in midair, a big golden hand appeared, holding the sword. Renault, you have threatened the Navy of Justice. Therefore, I sentence you to death. The big golden hand held the sword, and then stabbed down fiercely. Boom. In an instant, there was a violent explosion in the air. Then, countless gas was pushed out by the momentum of this blow, and then poured in, as if causing a tsunami. The ocean hundreds of meters below has been frozen into a continent, and countless lava rivers flow through it, like blood vessels. Very strong. You really deserve to be an admiral. The power of this blow may be able to kill a 3,000-meter sea king in an instant. It's not just the form of the great Buddha of the Warring States period, but also the superpower, and the shockwave blessing on the blade, giving it a powerful destructive power. Even Aokiji and Red Dog's Leon are entangled on the blade. I'm afraid they will explode instantly when they touch the enemy. I'm afraid they have been studying this trick for a long time. It's amazing how 2 completely different, even mutually restraining forces can coexist. This move, relying solely on the ability of the magma fruit, should not be able to withstand it. Since that's the case, Renault looked at the approaching blade with a smile on his lips. Then, 3 first, the voice just fell. A bright red titan emerged out of thin air. Giant soldier of poison, judgment of hell. And countless yellow sand guards in front of Renault. Erosion of reincarnation. Of course, the original magma power was with the 2 power emperors. Just as the blade was about to fall, the ice that made up most of the blade suddenly disintegrated as if it had been melted, turning into a puddle of water and falling. And the magma that was originally wrapped around it could only disappear at the same time. That big golden hand lost the sword in his hand, and could only be turned into a punch that hit the 3-layer shield to death. Boom. Damn. How is this possible? What's going on here? Aokiji. The Red Dog was furious, and gave Aokiji a hard look. The latter was a little ashamed, but tried to defend himself. I just feel my power suddenly dissipated. I don't know why. Look, those sand. Zhongguo snorted coldly, reminding the 2 of them. Aokiji 5 come and look towards Renault. The 3 attacked together. Although Renault couldn't be wounded half a point, they used the 3rd devil fruit ability. This guy. How many devil fruits does he have? Akainu gritted his teeth and looked at the flowing magma, the bright red poisonous titan, and the sand all over the sky, and he gritted his teeth in his heart. For ordinary people, owning a devil fruit is a luxury. How can this guy acquire 3 powers at the same time? In this world, a person can only eat 1 devil fruit. This is a well-known law. Warring State's mind was calm. Facing such a situation, although he didn't say much, he was still battered. A kind of magma fruit can make him invincible. The combination of the 3 abilities can easily break their strongest combined stunt. How can this be good? Renault didn't seem to notice the haze on the faces of the 3 admirals, and explained to himself. I have to admit that even if I received that blow, I would probably die here. It's a pity that your combat skills have well-known weaknesses. Zhang Guo's heart moved slightly. He first looked into the distance, as if he was waiting for something to arrive, then he stopped his hands, and asked in a deep voice, so, Mr. Renault, what is the weakness of this blow? Quote. Renault smiled slightly and talked about it. Actually, there is only one real shortcoming, and that is that the brewing time is too long, but under the overbearing arrogance of the general of the Warring States period, it is not a big problem. Quote. As for the weakness I mentioned, it's just for me personally. After all, not everyone has the ability to extract water from the sand fruit. Renault went on talking, put a wisp of sand in the palm of his hand, and rubbed it slowly. The ability of the Shasha fruit is to create gravel, but as long as the ability is upgraded to a high level, you can feel that its essence is drying up. I can even extract water from the human body and use it as a weapon. Therefore, it is not difficult to disintegrate the ice cube of General Aokiji. Aokiji's face was a bit ugly. His ability is freezing, although the essence is low temperature, but many attacks have to be attached to ice to carry out. If according to what Renault said, it can extract moisture from any object, then he is naturally restrained by Renault. Report. 71%. Chapter 31. Defeat the Admiral and burn my justice. All in all. Renault read slowly, with a low tone. You can't stop me at all. The 3 of you may be at the apex of this world, but for me, it's not enough. Zhang Guo looked into the distance again, and then asked, listen to you, aren't you a part of this world? It's too arrogant to say something like, not enough for me. Arrogance. The corners of Renault's mouth were slightly raised. Perhaps, people may be in awe of things they don't understand, but more often they are repulsive. Want to know why I can master many kinds of devil fruits? Having said that, Zhang Guo and the others felt tense. The reason why Renault can be so powerful is that he can control multiple devil fruit abilities at the same time, otherwise he would have been suppressed by the 3 together. B. How could this secret of becoming stronger be revealed so easily? Ben thought, Renault was just playing tricks on them. Unexpectedly, Renault actually said, then let me tell you, anyway, your strength is enough to know the 26 secrets. That's about the origin of the devil fruit. Aokiji's face changed slightly when he heard that. You mean the devil fruit tree? There are only a few legends about this tree. A long time ago, in the early stage when the ability of the devil fruit was discovered, it was still a chaotic and dark era. Some people use magic formulas. As long as they swallow the devil fruit, although they are afraid of seawater, they will gain a powerful force area. As a result, so many people started seeking these devil fruits. Some people say that the devil fruit grows on a very large tree, called the devil fruit tree, and its crown area can fully cover an island. But, the rumor in the record is just a legend. Whether anyone has seen this tree is still an unsolved mystery. Moreover, in the ancient century, there was a great war, which was a battle in which devil fruit-capable users united to overthrow the original order. The battle was so tragic that it is said that nearly 1/10 of the world's population was lost. And the final winners are those kings with profound background. 20 kings united to establish a world government, as well as subordinate navy and other departments. And these relatives of the king moved to the holy land of Mary Joa, and became the notorious dragon people of the world's nobles. Therefore, the world government has been hunting down devil fruit ability users. They are afraid that this uncontrollable powerful force will make a comeback again. As for the news and records about the existence of the devil fruit tree, they were all blocked and forgotten in history. Even the 3 admirals are not qualified to know. Today's devil fruit can be found everywhere. Therefore, Aokiji thinks the devil fruit tree is just a legend. But, Renault thought of this legend when he mentioned it. Renault nodded. That's right, devil fruit tree. But the name is not accurate. He revealed to me that his name is Supreme Rule Fruit Tree, which seems to come from another world. The Supreme Regular Fruit Tree. Another world. The 3 slowly chewed and digested the shocking news, and finally Zhang Guo smiled wryly. This tree will speak to you. What is the purpose of spreading these devil fruits to the world? Renault shook his head and sighed. Unfortunately, I don't know what its purpose is. We mortals trapped in a world cannot understand what those existences think. They are like gods on high. Although it denies that it is a god, the power it possesses is no different from gods. 11. Its eyes focus on the life and death of a world, and the mediocre lives of ordinary people, even those arrogant and extravagant Tianlong people, are the same in its eyes. However, what I can confirm is that it does have a purpose. As for what it is, I don't know, and I don't want to speculate. Warring States coldly said. What about you? What is your purpose? Why did you attack the Holy Land, Mary Joa? Do you know that this is a capital crime against the world government? Renault waved his hand with disdain in his words. Capital crime. In the laws of those fat pigs, I am a capital crime, but in my creed, they are also unforgivable crimes. How dare you? There was shock and anger on Zhang Guo's face. The Admiral of the Navy has been educated since he was a child to be loyal to the world government and the Tianlong people. This has also led to his current personality being very upright. Facing any enemies of the world government, he must be wiped out quickly, and he will not even ask whether he is innocent. Why, if these words are spoken from a rebel, will it also make you feel harsh? The expression on Renault's face was very cheerful, and he kept talking. Think about it carefully. Are those devil fruit users really guilty? Just for the pursuit of power, most of them have not harmed others, so you arrest them and put them in prison. Akakan snorted coldly. If they don't obey the management, they should die. These criminals should be killed on the spot, instead of throwing away all the judicial island and advanced city. Warring States also had a look of conviction. Only Aokiji, with a hesitant look on his face, he didn't seem to agree with what the two companions said. All people have been taught by 620 since childhood that the world government represents absolute justice, and the reason to hunt down devil fruit users is because they are very dangerous. The former Aokiji also believed in these words, and was also a passionate man. Ever since he saw one thing that Red Dog did, as well as the internal style of the Navy, and the arrogance of those Tianlong people, he began to feel disappointed, and now, he has become a lazy and unscrupulous guy. Although in the eyes of others, he was still the powerful admiral, but he did not know how many times he disobeyed the orders of the Navy and refused to take action against ordinary people. At this moment, after hearing what Renault said, Aokiji's heart was slightly shaken, but he soon returned to normal. He believes that justice will have different opinions on people with different positions, and will change with their positions, so he will not question other people's justice, but when others want to hinder his own justice, he will never let go over each other. Such a concept has kept him in pain for a long time, but he has never quit the Navy. Renault glanced at the vacillating Aokiji, and suddenly smiled. From your own standpoint, you think that I am just a traitor, a bad person who destroys stability. Then you might as well think for yourself, what kind of justice do you represent? Report. 71%. Chapter 32. Arrival. Horrible ancient weapon. Pluto. Think about the Tianlong people. They stepped on your heads, stepped on everyone's heads. The damage they brought to ordinary people. I don't know how many times I have seen, because the Tianlong people stepped on it on a whim, and the broken family was gone. Sengoku and Akainu were slightly shocked when they heard the words, but they soon regained their firmness. Akakan said, that doesn't matter to us, they will naturally handle it themselves. Warring States didn't even bother to explain. In his opinion, explaining this to a greedy and cruel pirate is undoubtedly a love affair with a cow, so he started attacking straight away. Enough, criminal, don't even think about entering the Red Earth continent today. The battle begins again, but this time, Renault, who showed 3 abilities, can already ravage 3 admirals. In midair, whether Renault threw out a magma punch, a yellow sand thorn, or even a poisonous gas bomb, he could make the 3 of them into a mess. And Renault just stood there, watching all this indifferently, while saying, the devil fruits you eat are all fragments of incomplete rules, so they cannot be compatible together. And I have taken a completely different path from you. A shock wave of golden light struck. Stop talking nonsense. Warring States tried their best to send out a shock wave, but failed to reach Renault 3 meters before, and was blocked by a magma. If you keep fighting like this, you will all die here. Renault didn't care about the exasperation of the few people, and just reminded him out of the mouth. And at this time, below, the large force of the Navy has arrived, and in an instant, they fought with the members of the Order organization. Blood flowed like a river. At the same time, they are also closely watching the battle above. When the Navy saw that its 3 generals were entangled with one person, and there was no winner, everyone felt extremely heavy. According to past experience, the 3 generals should be hopeless when they make a move. How could it be like this today? Could it be that the Navy has a burden in its heart? Although it has a large number of people, the strength of each of them is 108,000 miles away from that of the orderly coalition forces, so they are retreating steadily, and even their morale has collapsed. It's like reflecting the battle situation in the sky. The victory and defeat have been decided. Renault gave a loud shout, and endless yellow sand rushed out, forming a huge palm in the air, and then swept across without any explanation, pinching the 3 exhausted admirals in his hands. At the same time, the fleet organized by order swept across the naval blockade and set foot on the Red Earth continent. 1. Great. Cheers sounded, and the color of excitement appeared on everyone's face. Just when they were about to go to the Holy Land of Mary Joa. Boom. A dull loud noise came from afar. This sound, like a hammer hitting people's hearts, made everyone's movements concentrate and look into the distance. Because of the skyline, they couldn't see the object making the sound. But, even the crew members with the lowest strength can feel that there seems to be a terrifying existence rushing towards this side. Ha 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 ha, they're finally here. Warring States, who was bound by Wangsha's palm, laughed out loud when he saw this scene, as if his side had already won. Renault looked into the distance, then turned his head again. Marshal Warring States, so you have been telling me what you said just now, not out of curiosity, but to delay time, right? Of course, but by the time you find out, it's too late. There are little bloodstains on Zhang Guo's face. In the previous battle, even in his Buddha form, it was difficult to resist such an exaggerated attack. Renault shook his head. What I'm more curious about is that you are already the ceiling of the entire Navy's combat power, but you also failed under my command. Why do you think that once the support arrives, I will fail? Is it possible that you still have a secret weapon? The number of people has no meaning for the strength of a few people. With one blow, they can slaughter hundreds of ordinary people. Even if you can't fight, you can escape. Therefore, these so-called supports are definitely not ordinary existences. Of course there is, and that's the stuff that breaks you to pieces. Akainu laughed. In less than a moment, a huge figure appeared in people's sight. Damn, what is that? My heart almost stopped beating. Is that an island? It's a ship. It's a ship. How come? Far away, above the skyline. A terrifying huge figure slowly drove towards this side. This body is so huge that even the sun's rays are mostly covered by it, like a 10,000-meter-high titan crawling on the water. After getting a little closer, everyone followed the dim light and saw clearly the true appearance of this huge figure, which was a ship. Such a huge ship. In comparison, other fleets are as small and inconspicuous as the 10 screws above. People watched in horror as the giant beast drove towards it little by little, as if its heart was about to stop beating. The huge gun barrel on it doesn't look like a joke. And midair, seeing this huge ship, Renault finally showed a satisfied smile. This is the legendary ancient weapon, Pluto. Warring States finally changed his face. Do you know ancient weapons? Ancient weapons. 3 ancient weapons with the title of God, that have existed since ancient times and can destroy the world. They are Pluto, Neptune, Poseidon, and Uranus. And the huge ship that was summoned this time is Pluto. Known as the worst warship in the history of shipbuilding. It is said that a single shot can destroy an island, and there is more than one powerful weapon in it. Once born, it dead symbolizes the end of an entire era. Of course I know, but just like you, I just thought it was just a legend. Renault spoke slowly. I used to think, since you have such a killer weapon, why don't you take it out earlier and catch the pirates in the whole world? It was only later that I realized that in this era, there are not many devil fruits produced, and the world is still in a relatively stable state. And you chose to take out the killer weapon of Pluto to deal with me, it's really a face. Renault sneered. Although it was easy to say, Renault still felt a little pressure. Different from devil fruit ability users. The destructive power of this, Pluto, is undoubtedly terrifying to the extreme. Normal people may not even have the courage to resist in the face of its existence. Not much else to say, just the huge size like a city is enough to make people laugh. Report, 72%. Chapter 33. Fierce battle against Pluto, a strange position. Very well, this is a decent opponent. Renault didn't show any timidity at all, instead he was full of fighting spirit. In terms of strength, even the existence of the admiral level, he can ravage it, and 3 at a time. Its strength, in the category of human, is basically invincible. The one that can be taken seriously is probably this ancient weapon. Everyone, retreat. Renault immediately gave the order. And at the same time, the 3 admirals were thrown at will, and they were thrown to the retreating naval fleet. Killing is a means, and Renault's means have not really been brought into play, so he will not kill them first. Most of the members of the Order organization who received the order had just set foot on the Red Earth continent, so they had no choice but to retreat after hearing the words. Although there are many doubts in my heart, but out of unconditional trust in Renault, all members can only retreat to a safe place. Pluto, let me see how capable you really are. Renault headed towards the ship. Hurry. But before running a few hundred meters, a deafening explosion sounded suddenly. Boom 1. This explosion seemed to ring in everyone's ears, making them feel unprecedented pain, and some people even bleed out from their 7 orifices. The sea created terrifying waves, the wind roared, 290 blew away the dark clouds in the sky, and then brought more black clouds to cover the sun, and even the bottom of the deep sea seemed to be trembling slightly because of it. Like a doomsday scene. All of these, just because Pluto fired a cannon into the air. And the moment the shell hit Renault, it brought a scene like the end of the world. Mid-air, smoke billows. That guy should be dead, right? Definitely dead. This is the attack of Hades, which can destroy an island. No matter how powerful Renault is, he cannot be compared with Pluto. Master Renault is dead. How can it be? Damn. Everyone had different opinions on this scene, but without exception, they all believed that Renault had already died in this attack. However, the smoke gradually faded. A fiery red body appeared in everyone's eyes. It was flowing magma. Renault's body has completely turned into a magma-like existence. Even if it is cut and crushed, it can still reorganize the body. CGDC, very powerful, but not enough. If the speed is faster, it should make it too late for me to elementalize my body, and I will be smashed to pieces, right? Pity. Renault laughed. His body changed back to its original shape again, and he looked at Hades. There is no one operating this ancient weapon. On Pluto's huge deck, there is no crew. Even the cannon that shoots at itself is assembled automatically. It's like an alloy monster that moves by itself. Nobody. Great. I'm not tied down anymore. After speaking, Renault sprinted, and in the blink of an eye, he came to the sky above Hades, and then pointed his fists at the sky, and countless lava fists fell like raindrops, and wolves smashed on the center of Banyan King's slab. Boom, boom, boom. There were violent explosions, and bright lights like fireworks continued to light up on the battlefield. This indiscriminate bombardment lasted for 3 minutes, and then everyone looked intently, only to find that there was not a single scratch on Hades' deck. Even the cooled stones of the magma fist were decomposed by some mysterious force, and finally turned into nothingness. It's such a hard material, it's not damaged at all. Renault was taken aback. His meteor volcano move, the power of each lava fist is enough to blow up a ship. And with so many lava fists gathered together, even an island would turn into a sea of flames. And this Pluto, not even a scratch. My attack power is too low. Or something else. Renault frowned and waved his hand. A wave of yellow sand gathered around him, and then turned into a long knife, stabbing downward. The long knife had just penetrated about 50 meters away from Hades, but it suddenly turned into a handful of yellow sand and dissipated into the sky. It turned out that it wasn't a material problem, but a special stance that blocked the attack. Renault's eyes searched the huge body of Pluto, but he couldn't find the source of his position. At the same time, the Japanese bombardment lights up again. Run. Renault dodged the bombardment with a dodge, and the shell missed and landed on the red earth land behind Renault, creating a huge hole with a diameter of hundreds of kilometers. Renault flew around Pluto at high speed, while dodging the bombardment from Pluto. The cannon on Pluto's body is not just one, a huge barrel extends from almost every baffle. These barrels are automatically loaded and fired, and even judge Renault's movement trajectory, so as to block fire. However, Renault has several kinds of elemental fruits, and it is very easy to deal with this kind of non-dominant physical attack. However, there was a string in his heart that was always tense. Renault was not stupid enough to think that Pluto had only one attack mode. As he expected, soon, an inexplicable force suddenly pulled over, like an invisible hand, tearing apart the magma column that Renault used to fly. Immediately afterwards, while Renault was in a state of astonishment and weightlessness, this force was like swallowing, trying to suck Renault into the ship king. What is this? Renault was startled, but his good fighting qualities allowed him to react instantly, and then a yellow sand swung out. The yellow sand filled the sky, and under the strange suction, it quickly poured into Pluto's body, and Renault, who originally controlled the yellow sand, also found that once these things entered Pluto's body, he completely lost his control. It's as if there is something inside, digesting these powers. What a weird ship. Taking this opportunity, Renault quickly ejected a large amount of magma, driving himself away from this area. At the same time, the suction force suddenly intensified as if it had tasted some sweetness. Even with a distance of hundreds of meters, Renault was completely embarrassed by the strange suction force. Feeling the strength of this suction, Renault could only activate his ability and try his best to resist. But the suction seems to have no limit, and it has increased again. This time, even the seawater thousands of meters away was swallowed by the hull whale, and the air flowed over due to the terrifying suction, like water pouring backwards. Do you like to smoke? Then I'll suck it for you. Let me see if you can eat it. Renault's heart skipped a beat, and 3 colors gushed out from his hand. Report, 72%. Chapter 34. Admirals of the Past Dynasties, Taboo Puppet. For a moment, purple poisonous gas, yellow gravel, and red magma, like 3-color rivers, drilled directly in the direction of gravity. And these 3 completely different forces collided together, making an astonishing explosion sound in the hull of Hades. Even Pluto himself showed a slight straight fight. After absorbing it for about half a minute, the strange suction force displayed by Pluto finally stopped. Are you scared? I thought you were going to continue with me forever, haha. Renault breathed a sigh of relief. Just about to fly away. And on the deck of Pluto, there was a hole suddenly. Immediately afterwards, a group of giant puppets appeared in front of Renault. These puppets seem to be made of wood, some of them are moldy, and they look extremely old. And its shape seems to imitate the skeleton structure of human beings, but there are some flesh and blood characteristics in some places. For example, the heart position of many puppets has dark red flesh and some machinery is beating, as if it is a real heart. The puppet skeletons are very tall, and the shortest one is close to 5 meters in height. They all held spears in their hands, had empty eyes, and wore tattered red robes. And the one in their lead is holding a long knife, wearing a golden coat, and his figure has reached a terrifying meter. Although there were less than 20 of them, the moment these skeletons came out, they put great pressure on Renault. Although he didn't have the arrogance of knowledge, Renault has accumulated a lot of experience after fighting for a long time. Therefore, he could tell at a glance that the strength of these 20 puppets was not inferior to that of an admiral. And the leading golden long knife puppet is even more unfathomable. How could such power exist? Renault was astonished, but he didn't show mercy in his hands, and a magma burned over. As soon as the magma approached the puppet, it was pierced by a spear, and then the entire magma column collapsed to the ground. And this is just a red-robed puppet's shot. What? Renault couldn't believe it. With this blow from myself, even people like Akainu would have to spend a lot of effort to disintegrate it. This puppet diffuses the blow by raising its hand. Could it be that they are all stronger than admirals? And far away, the 3 admirals of the Navy were thrown onto the ship by Renault, only slightly injured, and soon recovered. And they were looking at this scene, and they were extremely surprised in their hearts. You know, although Pluto was sent by the government. But this ancient weapon, that only existed in legends, they had only heard about it before. Therefore, they are not clear about the weapons on board. Seeing these puppets, I was also puzzled and surprised. These people. The aura is very familiar. Akainu hesitated, looking at the puppet with puzzled eyes, as if looking for a certain memory. Aokiji felt the same way, but he didn't say it. Only the Warring States slowly said, "Don't think about it, those puppets are us." What's the meaning? Could it be that? Zhongguo snorted coldly, pointed to that side and said, I said, you should see clearly, those puppets are obviously the admirals of the past dynasties. Having said that, Akainu reacted. These people. It's no wonder that everyone's breath is familiar, and even their body is similar to a certain existence in memory. No wonder it was a former admiral, who I had seen in various books and portraits. How many years have they been dead? Let the dead live in this world, this is taboo knowledge. Qingzi opened his mouth and shouted, it was hard to accept such a fact. Warring States smiled, with a look of contempt on his face, he said, taboo. As long as the justice of the world can be maintained, even if it violates a little common sense. For greater justice, only a small number of people can be sacrificed. Besides, these generals are willing to sacrifice for justice. They are all for justice. You also have to have such awareness, have you heard? There was a convinced expression on Akainu's face, but Aokiji gritted his teeth and didn't make a sound. And the other side, a battlefield in midair. As soon as the puppet army came out, they set off, and their respective abilities came. Ice and snow, thunder, cutting, transformation. One by one, the strange abilities are flying in the sky, and they all meet a goal in the end, Renault. And the golden-clothed leader standing at the top didn't even make a move, and looked at Renault with 2 empty eyes, as if he was measuring his strength. Ask for flowers. Underestimate me. Not going to use all your strength, are you? Then come on. Renault folded his hands. His left arm is flowing sand, while his right arm has become hot lava. With the two palms closed, the deep purple poisonous gas around him also circulated crazily, climbing steadily like the momentum of the whole person. Finally, two words came out of Renault's mouth. Curse. A light flashed. Under the entanglement of a huge force, the yellow sand, poisonous gas, and magma were quickly entangled together, and then turned into a pillar of nearly 100 meters, smashing towards the direction of Hades. Its shape is like a bomb. 0. Bang. A muffled sound came from the pillar. Unlike the big bang of a cannonball, the destructive power of this move comes from the extremely strong erosion. The yellow sand summoned by the rustling fruit can extract water from any substance. The poisonous gas of the poisonous fruit can corrode the substance. Not to mention the magma fruit, its magma temperature has no upper limit. The three kinds of power are mixed together to form a terrifying corrosive force, like a god of death, which will wreak havoc and harvest life. 2. Puff. As soon as this huge pillar touched the surface of Hades, it was disintegrated by that strange position, and those puppets, the moment the pillar appeared, retreated within the protection range of Hades. This trick actually doesn't work. Renault's complexion finally turned serious, but then eased up a little. Because he saw that at the moment before the pillar dissipated completely, the position lingering on Pluto's body finally showed slight ripples, as if it had reached the limit. This is your limit, but it's really tough. Renault had a general understanding in his mind, but he quickly shifted his current attention to the 20 puppets. This is his main enemy right now. Pluto is just a dead object. As long as these puppets are dealt with, he can wear down his shield bit by bit. Then the steel monster can be dismantled into scrap iron. The puppet made a move. And except for the leader, all the puppets shot together, without any mercy. Report. 72%. Chapter 35. A powerful puppet, experience in a dangerous situation. In an instant, dozens of rays of light surged in the midair, rushing to Renault's position together. Frost, bone spurs, slashes, gas, air currents. The powerful impact forces are intertwined together, forming a light curtain of hundreds of meters in the air as if they are going to destroy the world. Boom. The light curtain hit Renault's body. Bursts of strong light shone, as if to tear apart the barrier of space. The terrifying power makes people who are thousands of meters away feel terrified. This kind of attack, if it falls on me, I'm afraid it will be evaporated into air in a second. Too strong. Shocking. After the light curtain shines. A figure stood upright. It is Renault. As for him, although his face was still calm, there was a hint of seriousness in his eyes. With the blow just now, my body was almost smashed to pieces. Chi. Luckily elementalized her body in advance. 1. Renault felt a little rejoiced. However, you have left the protection range of Ming Wang Li's field, now it's time for me to attack. Immediately, with a light wave of his hand, the yellow sand rushed towards the puppets. Boom. Strangle. The yellow sand all over the sky has almost dyed this sea area into a desert scene. 1,000-meter-long gravel dragon gradually took shape, and the ferocious expression on the dragon's head was evil and pure as if it had come to life. Go. 2 words came out of Renault's lips. The giant sand dragon heard the words, buried the dragon's head, and charged towards the puppets. Seeing this, the puppets scattered in all directions to avoid this attack. Obviously, this giant sand dragon cannot resist. B. The giant dragon seemed to have vitality. Seeing this, it turned a corner and swept its tail, knocking several puppets to the ground. The dragon's head was still heading towards the group of puppets. $%. Seeing this, the golden-clothed leader standing on the bow, motionless like a mountain, suddenly uttered a few weird syllables, and then tiptoed lightly. The whole person flew out like a cannonball. The golden-clothed leader swung his long knife, and the giant sand dragon, which was hundreds of miles away, suddenly raised its head to the sky and let out a shrill scream, then broke into 3 pieces, turned into a pool of gravel and fell into the sea. What ability is this? Seeing this, Renault was astonished. And this kind of strength is too exaggerated. Just taking a shot, he wiped out his own stunt. The strength of this gold-clothed leader is really too strong. I'm afraid it's much more than me. A golden-clothed leader whose strength far exceeds his own. Plus a dozen admiral-level puppets. And Pluto's unpredictable methods. This battle, 9 lives, but Renault isn't backing down. Even actively launched an attack. Come on, let me see how far you can push me. A magma, a long yellow sand knife, gradually formed in the air, and then the 2 attacks were like shooting arrows, attacking the golden-clothed leader in a hurry. $. The gold-clothed leader screamed strangely, and at the same time neither dodged nor dodged, but lightly waved the long knife in his hand. Shish. A few sharp saber auras scattered Renault's attack, and even left some energy to fly towards him. At the same time, 19 puppets surrounded Renault and launched an attack. Elementalization. Surprised, Renault didn't dare to take it hard, and at the same time changed his body position in the air to avoid being hit by it. Although the elemental body will not die after being attacked, it will take time to repair the damage, which will waste a lot of time. And in this dangerous situation, wasting a little time is equivalent to making a fatal mistake. In the middle, the power surged, and the concentration spread out in all directions. And Renault, despite doing his best to dodge, was hit a few times. A large piece of his lava shoulder was missing, and only 2 of his limbs remained. His left leg and right arm were shattered by the sharp knife air. Even his chest was broken. In the distance, the Navy who saw this scene couldn't help but get excited. Good. Kill the criminal Renault. Great. It turns out that our Navy still has such a secret weapon, it's really powerful. Pluto. Worthy of being the ancient weapon Pluto. Look at how arrogant Renault is. One after another cheers came out from the mouths of the Marines. Although the loss was heavy, as long as Renault, the leader of the rebels, was killed, the farce that threatened the holy land of Marioa could be declared over. Everyone thinks that Renault must die. Except for the 3 admirals. Warring States looked at the sky, and Renault, who fled in embarrassment, felt a little happy at first, but he couldn't help frowning when he got to the back. Marshal, you also found out. Akainu couldn't help but speak. Sengoku nodded. Although Renault looks like he is about to lose every second, like a candle in the wind, it can be blown out with a little effort. But look, until now, he is still on the verge of defeat. It's as if he's put himself in this situation on purpose, to appear to be at a disadvantage but to be able to handle it well. Qingzi couldn't help but nodded. He also felt the weirdness, but couldn't help but said, "But, why is this? What does Renault want to do?" Warring States pondered for a while, and suddenly came up with a conjecture. Could it be that he's working on himself? What? Akainu turned his head with an expression of disbelief. Zhongguo shook his head, but still sighed. I only have one guess. He is honing his fighting skills. Renault's strength is so strong that it is difficult to find an opponent who can give him all he can, so his moves and reactions are relatively backward. At this time, he is honing his fighting skills. Aokiji had an unbelievable expression on his face. At this time, he looks like he's going to die. 5.4. Warring States' voice was dull and helpless. I don't want to believe it either, but there is only one explanation for now. And this shows that if he is not a lunatic, or he has the cards that can make him invincible. During the conversation, suddenly there was a throbbing on the Pluto. It seems that waves of sweet songs spread to the surrounding sea area. Everyone couldn't help being intoxicated by this singing. It seems to have a hypnotic magic power. Even existences such as Sengoku and Aokiji tried their best to protect their minds so that they were not hypnotized by the singing. The singing stopped suddenly. On Hades' deck, a huge mermaid clan suddenly appeared. This mermaid seems to be a female, a young girl. What doesn't match her age is that her figure is more than 10 meters tall, like a giant beast. Report. 72%. Chapter 36. The second ancient weapon, Mermaid Princess Shirahoshi. She has long, flowing pink curly hair with a taiyaki hair accessory on her head. Wearing a pair of shell-shaped earrings, bright blue eyes, a beautiful appearance, a plump bust, and a pink fishtail on the lower body. As soon as he came out and was stared at by many people, the mermaid showed a shy expression, as if he didn't adapt to the gaze of so many people. Seeing this, Warring States couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The mermaid Princess Shirahoshi. I thought she would arrive on the boat behind, but I didn't expect her to be in Pluto's court. With this second, ancient weapon, no matter how many cards Renault has, he can't resist. That's right, this shy mermaid girl is the second, ancient weapon, of the Navy, and it is called the code name, Poseidon. She has the ability to summon Neptunes from the entire ocean. Neptunes are very common creatures, huge in size, various in variety, changeable in appearance, and extremely ferocious. They are the creatures that navigators are most afraid of seeing in the ocean. Its size, the huge one even has a body of several thousand meters, or even 10,000 meters tall. Like a mountain lying down. The Navy hijacked the mermaid princess and put her in chains to fight for the Navy. Today is also her first shot. Looking at O1 struggling to support Renault in midair, Bai Xing's eyes flickered with hesitation, but soon a strong electric current came out from Pluto, shocking her whole body until she rolled her eyes. Only then did Bai Xing tremble with his hands, put them in front of his mouth, and let out waves of invisible sound waves. Not long. Boom, boom, boom. In the deep sea, countless terrifying figures suddenly appeared. The originally calm sea suddenly became rough. The 3 generals were stunned for a moment, feeling bad, and with a wave of their hands, the ice cubes froze the sea area, preventing the storm from raging further. At the same time, they ordered all naval forces to retreat. And the members of the order have not known where to retreat for a long time. In the entire battlefield, only a few figures remained. One is the gigantic Pluto, and the mermaid Shirahoshi on deck. One is 20 puppet figures in the sky. The last one. It is Renault who has been struggling. And this time, those terrifying figures in the bottom of the sea finally surfaced on the surface of the sea. A huge octopus monster with a length of more than 5,000 meters exposed half of its head in the sea, and at the same time its arms were wrapped around Renault, who was still dodging. Two giant sea kings like sea turtles poked their heads out and bit Renault. More than a dozen sea kings with a length of more than 5,000 meters attacked Renault at the same time. There was even a 10,000-meter high mountain-like sea king that spit venom towards Renault. Pluto launched an attack, and at the same time hundreds of shells were fired at the same time. The gold-clothed puppet leader and 19 puppets attacked at the same time. All targets, all point to one. Renault. At this point, it was as if time had stopped. Renault slightly turned his head to look at these people. His eyes didn't touch anyone, and there was an extra smile in his eyes. Although his body was torn apart, as if he was on the verge of death, he was still smiling. 2 of the 3 major ancient weapons were dispatched, just to deal with me. It's really a face. 11. If you can push me to this point, you are entitled to be proud. Then I don't have to restrain myself. The voice did not fall. A ray of light bloomed from Renault. Like thousands of rays of light, it is so exciting that everyone can't open their eyes. Even those attacks gradually melted away in the glow. And when everyone looked at Renault again, he was completely restored and intact. And an illusion of a huge tree appeared behind him. This big tree, as huge as an island. Its branches and leaves are all over the sky, as if extending to another sea area. And the most surprising thing is that its body is covered with spiral-shaped fruits. Or a pineapple, or a banana. These fruits, in the eyes of everyone, are very familiar. Devil fruit. Looking at the tree, Warring States could no longer hide his horror. Could it be that this is the legendary devil fruit tree? How can this be? There were bursts of exclamations. These navies have also heard the legend about the devil fruit tree. But what they didn't expect was that they would actually be able to see this scene one day. However, only Renault himself knows that this is not the so-called devil fruit tree. Nor is it a true supreme regular fruit tree. It's just a wisp of will. Back then, the supreme rule fruit tree turned a sliver of its original will into a fruit for Renault to eat. Renault, on the other hand, has the ability to use all the devil fruits he has seen and heard. Just like the magma fruit, poisonous fruit, rustling fruit. As long as Renault has seen its ability, he will become its ability owner. The purpose of his establishment of an orderly organization is also to collect all the abilities of devil fruits as much as possible, and then gradually spread these so-called concepts to all parts of the world. But in the back, after witnessing the bad behavior of the Navy one by one, Renault raised the idea of overthrowing the world government and killing all the dragon people. 2 of the 3 ancient weapons of the world government have been deployed. Both are used to deal with Renault. This battle will be extremely tragic. Behind Renault, the phantoms of the supreme regular fruit trees gradually dissipated, but the fruits on those trees of 613 flew into Renault's body one by one. Without the shock of Xiaoguang, those sea kings instantly became furious, and attacked Renault one by one. Roar. The 10,000-meter-long giant snake, like a formed giant dragon, ejected its huge body, opened its bloody mouth, and wanted to swallow that tiny figure of Renault in one gulp. However, before the giant snake approached, it was split in half by a sword light, and the whole body fell into the sea, setting off huge waves, and the sea area was immediately stained red with blood. When it was over, Renault waved his hand lightly, and the giant snake's body suddenly became a sea of flames, as if it was about to be burned to ashes. What are you? Are you kidding me? Such a powerful sea king can be killed with a single move. It turns out that Renault has been hiding his history. Everyone was surprised. The sea kings with a length of 10,000 meters can be said to be the overlords in the ocean, and there are very few bodies that can match it. Even if it is in existence at the level of admiral, don't even think about beheading it. That body shape is placed here, just by moving and turning over, an island can be easily destroyed. It can be said that it is a real, doomsday behemoth. Can bring devastating disaster to a country. Report. 73%. Chapter 37. Turn your hands to diffuse ancient weapons and shock the world. But such a behemoth. To be beheaded by Renault. He was still under the siege of the crowd just now, looking very embarrassed. In a blink of an eye, it became so powerful. But in midair, the battle continued. After beheading the giant snake sea king, Renault's eyes turned to the golden puppet. You are very powerful, but the breath is too evil, as if the soul is trapped in it. Let me help you out. As he spoke, Renault raised a hand. A chilling power emanated from it. The howling wind gathered in his palm, although it condensed into a ball. There was a soft sound. The golden-clothed leader, who was majestic just now, didn't even have time to react, and was hit by a stream of air. His tall body was instantly blown to pieces, and even Chengli appeared. Seeing this, the 19 puppets hurried forward to help, but they didn't expect that they were blown into powder as soon as they touched the strong wind area. And that Pluto, seeing that something was wrong, started to launch a positional attack again. But Renault didn't seem to want to resist at all. He just waved his hand casually. An incomparably violent tremor suddenly emerged in the air. Before Pluto's position had time to activate, he was rippled by this violent tremor. After a while, there was a snap. Pluto's defensive stance is broken. In the air, a large transparent hand emerged, grabbed the mermaid princess Bai Xing, who was stunned in place, and gently threw it into the sea water. Shirahoshi stared at Renault in the sky in disbelief, unwilling to leave for a long time, and finally felt that Pluto seemed to want to catch her back again, so he suddenly turned around, dived into the depths of the sea, and disappeared. So far, 2 ancient weapons. The same mermaid princess Shirahoshi was released by Renault. It is only a matter of time before the worst battleship Pluto in history, all of its men Duanyi, was resolved by Renault, without a defensive position, and was dismantled into a pile of scrap iron. Renault's current strength is terrifying like a god. Thousands of different forces linger around him, making him look like a real god, as if with a hint of supremacy, making the world submit to him. It's not surprising that they feel so oppressed. All the abilities of the devil fruit come from a fragment of the rule that the supreme rule fruit tree evolved in this world. And Renault's ability comes from the orthodox supreme rule fruit tree itself. Although it is not huge, it is also its original power. No matter how strong the devil fruit ability user is, he must look up to him. I heard that the world government controls 3 ancient weapons. They are Pluto, Poseidon, and Uranus. 2 of them have been resolved by me. Quote, I don't know if the 3 most mysterious, heavenly kings, will come to deal with me. As Renault said, he suddenly folded his palms together. Following his movements, Pluto seemed to let out a mournful cry, and then the entire ship shook violently. In the horrified eyes of everyone, Pluto seemed to be pushed into the sea by a terrifying force, and gradually sank. Under Renault's power, this warship, which claims to be able to destroy the world, gradually submerged in the sea water. The naval force, which is far from the king of all these, is full of shock in its heart. That's Pluto. Its size is comparable to a large city. Renault was able to push it whole into the sea. What kind of power is this? Even if it is called a god, I am afraid there will be no objection, right? Such an existence, who can stop him? Just when they were terrified and hopeless. Thousands of miles away, San Marie Joya, Pangu City. This huge city is home to the world's noble Tianlong people. But at this moment, these proud nobles all looked nervous and terrified, as if the end of the world was coming. There is no other reason. A few days ago, a little-known kid said that he would visit the Holy Land of Marioa in a few days, but he really came here today. By the way, he also defeated the 3 generals of the Navy and the 2 ancient weapons. As long as they set foot on the Red Earth continent, for Renault, it will be like walking on the ground, and it will be a matter of time before they are all beheaded. How could this not scare them? Just when they are desperate. The Holy Land of Mary Joya, this huge city, suddenly shook. Immediately afterwards, the whole city was like an earthquake, and there were continuous strong vibrations. However, the buildings in the city are very solid, so everyone just looked at it suspiciously. But they were surprised immediately, because the whole city seemed to be lifted by a distance of more than 10 meters. It's as if, under the Holy Land of Mary Joa, there is some kind of power that can propel it into the sky. In everyone's puzzled eyes, Holy Land Mary Joya gradually rose to an altitude of thousands of meters under the force of lift, and finally started flying straight away. Thousands of miles away, Renault seemed to have a heart-to-heart, looked over there, a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously lifted. Unexpectedly, it turns out that the 3rd largest, ancient weapon, is the Holy Land of Mary Joa itself. Shocking. Can such a weapon bring me surprises? Pangu City flew over at high speed. Like a giant beast. Renault also greeted him in that direction. In less than a moment, its huge body appeared in Renault's sight. This is a robot-like mechanical structure. The whole city is its head part, and underneath it seems to be made of all kinds, shining with a black and introverted brilliance. The robot has several thick arms, like the tentacles of an octopus. The two tentacles are used as legs and feet, supporting the robot to stand on the ground. And the most surprising thing is that there is a hot and bright red core at the heart of the robot, during which countless pulls were pushed by this core, exuding a faint coercion. That thing is, Renault's attention was entirely on the core. Although the robot looked intimidating, it posed no threat to him at all. On the contrary, it was the inner core that gave Renault a feeling that his life was about to be threatened. The bursts of fluctuations that emanate seem to give Renault the feeling that he is under the supreme regular fruit tree. What's this? Renault looked over there vigilantly, but a screen of light suddenly appeared above Pangu City. On the light screen is the figure of a person. This person was wearing a black robe, which covered his face and body, revealing only a rough outline and slender eyes. His eyes are red pupils with thin circles, and he wears a crown with 4 towering spikes and a ground-length cloak. Renault, go back, you can't resist the power of the King of Heaven. Report, 73%. Chapter 38. The third ancient weapon, the Heavenly King appears. The cloaked man said coldly. The discourse is full of undeniable taste. Renault fumbled for his chin. Before he could speak, a voice rang in his mind. That core, I need, help me to get there. It is the sound of the supreme regular fruit tree. Renault was surprised and delighted. Over the years, no matter how I behaved, the supreme rule fruit tree seemed to have disappeared, and I didn't give myself any reminders again. But this time, there was a sudden sound. It seems that the inner core is really not a mortal thing. Thinking of this, Renault hurriedly asked in a low voice, what is that thing? If I don't know, I'm afraid I can't handle it. The supreme rule fruit tree was silent for a moment, and said, that is a piece of a god, but it should be just a certain foreign god, who has not mastered the rules of this piece of heaven and earth. With your current strength, you may be able to get it. This thing can accelerate the speed of my comprehension. A lot of words, rules, and foreign gods made Renault confused. However, he also extracted the core point of this sentence, that is, this is a fragment of a god. God, real God. No wonder they are so far apart, so they feel life-threatening. After saying this, Supreme Rule 423 Fruit Tree returned to the state of silence again, and no matter how Renault asked, he stopped making a sound. Well, it's just a god. It's dead anyway, and it's just fragments. Maybe they should know something, but what I have to do now is to grab it. Thinking of this, Renault stretched out his hands, pushed by the powerful air current, causing the entire Pangu city to crumble. Seeing this, the robot seemed to have sensed Renault's thoughts, and quickly sent out a tentacle attack. Call out. The speed of the tentacle was extremely fast, and it carried a strong aura. Renault originally wanted to rely on his own strength to resist, but before he could make a move, he found that all his shields were disintegrated by the tentacle, and he was shocked. Can only dodge hastily. The strength and speed of this tentacle is not a threat to me, but it's a pity. It's a pity that there is a very strange power on it, which can annihilate all my abilities. It's as if all my abilities are avoiding that power. Is that the power of a god? It's too weird. Thinking of this, Nuo felt a headache. If you want to rush over like this, it is definitely not possible, and you will have to be dismembered by tentacles halfway. But I've been watching from afar. If this goes on, the only one who suffers will be himself. What can we do about it? At the same time, on the light screen, the man in the cloak was still persuading. Renault, I recognize your strength. I can give you a position second only to mine to rule the world together, as long as you step back. You can't defeat the power of God. I am the one representing justice, and I also recognize your strength. Having said that, Renault looked at it for a long time, and suddenly thought of something, and waved his hand. Call. A ball of fire hit the robot. The man in the cloak froze for a moment, and the robot immediately put out a tentacle to disperse the fireball. Renault, don't challenge the authority of I am, or you will be wrathed by the gods. There was a hint of anger in the words of the cloaked man I am. Obviously, Renault's provocative actions made him feel offended. But Renault didn't stop. One fireball after another was shot at the robot, and he taunted, anger. What anger? Even if I can't kill you immediately, what can you do with me? Although the power of the core of God is very strange, making it impossible for him to break through it in a short time, but it is obviously impossible to hunt down and kill Renault. Today, Renault has the power of thousands of devil fruits. Hundreds of them can make him easily escape the pursuit of robots in Pangu City. You are so bluffing. Why do I think you are afraid? Are you afraid that I will shake your rule? Or do you think I have ABFF threatened your life? Either way, it's not acceptable to you, is it? After enjoying the glory and wealth, it is difficult to return to the state of ordinary people, isn't it? Countless fireballs shot at the robot one after another, but without exception, they were whipped and dissipated by its tentacles. IM, who was on the light screen, did not speak during this period, until the last fireball was scattered, and then angrily shouted, "You are provoking the majesty of the spokesperson of God, and you should be sentenced to death." As IM said, although his words were full of anger, he was helpless in the face of Renault's hob meat. Fight. People don't fight with you. Run. You can't run. If you don't pay attention to it, Renault can even really threaten its ecology. Unexpectedly, in midair, Renault spoke suddenly. Such a huge robot, can it be controlled by you alone? Can you handle it? There was a flash of panic in Im's eyes, but he quickly calmed down. I don't understand what you are talking about. Renault laughed loudly. You've already shown your feet, IM. I just fired so many fireballs just to test you. Didn't you notice? When this robot resists the fireball, you have to be distracted and speak slowly. I'm guessing that a robot of this size needs at least 100 people to control it together in order to exert its enormous power. You're running it all by yourself. I guess you don't want power to be divided, right? Ha ha ha, you big shots, the most stingy place is here. Renault's words, like a sharp knife, pierced Im's heart. His face became more and more ugly, and at the end, he shouted angrily, "Enough, Renault, you must die here today." After all, bursts of red light were emitted from the top of the tentacles of the Pengu City robot, as if a laser was brewing on it. Many tentacles stretched out in the direction of Renault, spraying red lasers one after another. These lasers are intertwined into one piece, like a giant net, making Renault's figure nowhere to hide. Renault, this is what happens when you disobey me. There was a gleam of satisfaction in Im's eyes. The giant net swept across. Renault's figure still stands in midair, like a bamboo that has experienced wind and frost and is still tall and straight. I said, you want to kill me, it's just a fantasy. And I, knowing your weakness, you have to die. Renault smiled lightly. The figure suddenly rushed forward, like a cannonball, and came under the robot in an instant. Damn, he's so fast. Seeing Renault's figure, IM quickly manipulated and waved his tentacles, sweeping across, trying to block Renault 100 meters away. Report. 73%. Chapter 39. Slaughtering the ancient city of Pan, the end of the era. But Renault had already grasped his control method, and in an instant, countless attacks were shot at various parts of Penguchung's robot. Wind blade, slash, fireball, poison gas, electric shock. The devastating attacks one after another made Im's face look ugly. He had to use a lot of concentration to block these attacks, otherwise he would be dismembered into a pile of scrap iron soon. But Renault also took advantage of the time when IM was distracted from defense. Following these attacks, he jumped into Panguchung in the next second. This is the city where the celestial dragons live. Groups of fat-headed celestial dragons looked in horror at Renault, an outsider who stepped into their territory. But some people seemed to have not realized their situation. Looking at Renault's obviously outsider's attire, they pointed at him bossily and said, "Hey, you inferior, how dare you break into the market? The ancient city should be sentenced to death." This sentence seems to have brought great confidence to the surrounding Tianlong people, and they all spoke in the tone of the world's nobles, and directly ordered. "Inferior people, get out. HMPH, do you want to offend the nobles? Dirty pigs should be put to death. What a disgusting outsider, it's really Li Lian." A series of orders and reprimands came, which surprised Renault. These people are dying so stupid. Perhaps because they have never bowed their heads to others before, these Tianlong people turned their fear into the final arrogance, and seemed to want to frighten Renault away by yelling and threatening. But, what a bunch of stupid pigs. Renault shook his head and waved casually. A vine soared into the sky, tied the necks of these Tianlong people tightly, and then hung them up. No, let me go. Damn it, you'll regret it. This group of celestial dragons all turned purple, and finally struggled to death in pain. But, even that didn't make Renault feel any better. The pain and suffering they inflicted on the world can be redeemed in this way. All Renault can do is to make them disappear from the world in the future and stop being pests. And just when he wanted to move further. What did you do? Kill nobles? Im's voice echoed in the city, his tone full of anger. Looks like he's done with those attacks. One after another tentacles were attacking on Pengu City. Renault snorted coldly. Slaughter the nobles. These stupid pigs have been endangering the world for so long. It is already a blessing for me to let them die so happily. You will also end up with a fate. Im's voice is mighty, echoing in the city, as if there is no source. Are you trying to prevent me from getting your position with this kind of trivial trick? It's ridiculous. Renault smiled slightly. I know, you are hiding in this city. I am sneered, so what if you know? Could you still find me? Renault's voice suddenly amplified, and a crazily smile appeared on his face. I don't need to look for it either. Why? As long as the entire city is destroyed, wouldn't it be enough? After all, Renault set off. He held thunder and lightning in one hand, and exhaled earth yellow power in the other, as if a god wanted to punish mortals. Following his actions, the entire Pangu city began to shake. And the sky is condensed with the power of lightning. There was lightning and thunder, and bucket-thick beams of lightning poured down. Each beam of light could destroy all buildings at least 10 miles away. The damage caused by the earthquake was even more terrifying. All the buildings were crumbling, and even more than half of the ground collapsed, and it spread at an alarming speed. Inside Pangu City, it was like the end of the world. Enough. Im's voice was full of anger, and even a hint of panic. If the search continues like this, not only will everyone in the entire Pangu City die, but even he will be buried with him. It will be a matter of time before he is found. Renault, I can share this world with you. Why do you have to do this? I am talking, but the tentacles attacking Renault didn't stop. You want to overthrow us, just to establish another ruling order. Why do you have to be so decisive? You killed us, isn't it human? People are greedy animals. As long as they sit in a high position, they will covet more enjoyment and indulge in extravagance. This is very natural. You pretend to be a saint. Dare you say that you have never suffered? 0. Ask for flowers. Even if you kill me, the next ruler will still be like this. Im's voice was close to madness, frantically dissuading. Renault heard this, although he did not stop, but fell into deep thinking in his mind. Human nature is evil. He has always believed in this truth. Although he has always hated the Tianlong people and wanted to drive them out, he never thought about what would happen to the next organization that ruled the world if they were overthrown. It's just going the same way. Renault sighed. All kinds of mortals are materialistic. No wonder the supreme rule fruit tree exists and disdains to talk to people. It's really filthy. Instead of letting the next organization go the same way, it's better to clean up these guys and not kill them all. Thinking of this, Renault made up his mind, and suddenly closed his hands. Earthquakes, volcanoes, lightning, and tsunamis descended on Pangu City at the same time. In an instant, the city was turned into a dilapidated ruin. Although IM didn't know where he was probably dead, because the movement of this huge robot suddenly stopped, and then the whole thing seemed to be in a shutdown, motionless. Renault made 2 tentative attacks before confirming that the robot had indeed stopped working, so he walked up to the core with confidence and groped for his chin. After a long time, Renault carefully wrapped it in a leaf, placed it in a certain place, and flew towards the holy land of Mary Joya. Today, 2 big things happened. One is that the rebel Renault fought against the 3 major navy generals, and defeated the 3 ancient weapons, bloodbathed the entire holy land of Marioa, and did not spare a single celestial dragon. The second thing is, on that night, people in the whole world seemed to feel a kind of throbbing, and their hearts were filled with the urge to worship, but they didn't know where this strange feeling came from. Where? But starting today, the pattern of the world has undergone some changes. The first is the world government. All the celestial dragons have been annihilated, but the navy and other organizations still remain, and they still serve as tools to maintain justice. But those blood-sucking fat pigs in the sky finally died. Also, it is the mysterious organization, Order 6. Report, 73%. Chapter 40. The era of great pirates begins, 10,000 Realms Auction Conference. Their leader, Renault, who can be called legend and god on earth, disappeared completely after that shocking battle. It is said that after the great battle he was badly wounded and died. Some say he became a true god. It was also said that he thought people were too filthy and hid. But no matter which version it is rumored that he owns thousands of devil fruits and equal wealth. People began to search for the wealth of this god on earth. And this rise of nautical sports also caused fierce conflicts between the navy and the pirates who were looking for wealth. This frenzied treasure hunt lasted for a full 100 years. Until later, a guy named Galdi Roger first completed the Great Line. He entered an island, seeing 367, realized the truth of the world and gained unparalleled wealth. He was caught by the navy and executed, but before he died he said, "Want to know everything? Want my wealth? Go find it, I hid it all there." So far, the whole world has opened the age of great navigation. Plant collar. The world of fruit tree selection with supreme rules is really extraordinary, and these rules can be evolved. Susie smiled slightly, very satisfied with this battle. For supreme rule fruit tree, these battles will spread his concept to people's hearts even more. And the more people who remember it, the deeper the influence, the more efficient it will be in comprehending this law of heaven and earth. What's more, he also accidentally got the source fragment of a foreign god, which can be described as a pleasant surprise. Now it needs a certain amount of time to comprehend, and it probably won't be long before it can become a god. Suzy was looking forward to it. The fruit tree became a god with the supreme rule, which was of great help to him. You must know that the quality of the fruits produced by these heroes is related to their own level. The higher the level, the stronger the strength, and the better the fruit will be. The selling price is also higher. Since this time, almost every day, his profit from the Wanji auction house is as high as 100 billion, not to mention the taxes in the Wanji Mall. Being able to collect money while lying down every day is simply a good thing to wake up from a dream. However, In still didn't feel very happy. Although these source crystals, for a god king, I am afraid they are all belongings. And the speed of making money is even faster than those big families with god kings and high-ranking gods. But compared to collecting plant tokens every day, spending money to spread the concept of plants in various places, and transmitting buildings, it is barely enough to spend. Don't think that spending money is extravagant, this is even the result of Suzy's hard work to control it. Otherwise, its consumption will be even more terrifying. There is no other reason, only one word, big. First of all, the cosmic sea is too big. During this period of time, Suzy has sent heroes to travel in various places. And most places don't know their specific coordinates, so they can only use those big families with space props to carry out large-scale long-distance transmission, which is a big expense. Otherwise, fly slowly, don't know it will take hundreds of years to get to the place you want to go. There is also the acquisition of plant tokens. I don't know if they were colluded by those merchants to take the opportunity to increase the price, or they deliberately targeted themselves. Those plant tokens that no one wanted before have all increased their prices. 10 prices can even be compared to some popular arms. Although for Suzy, no matter how expensive the plant token is, he still has to buy it. After all, this is the foundation of his own strength, but he doesn't want to be taken advantage of by this, so he went to other areas to collect tokens in a fit of anger. This is another expense. The buildings in the territory require a huge amount of source crystals every time they are used. Therefore, even with 2 money-making machines, Suzy still feels stretched and his wallet is tight. But he quickly thought of a way. During this period of time, I have only sold some low-cost things such as Enlightenment Tea and Supreme Flat Peach, which have attracted the appetite of many God King level existences. Now, I can finally do it. After a few days. World auction. The whole of Chengdu seems to have entered a festival. Although there are no lights and festoons everywhere, there are many mysterious characters on the street for no reason. Each of them had a powerful aura, surrounded by a group of bodyguards and servants. Some passers-by have sharp eyes and are secretly shocked. Because these people are at least the existence of high gods. Gods zero. Even in Chengdu, there are very few. Not to mention the absolute powerhouse of the gods, the high god. And those who can't tell the strength of the breath. It can only be a more powerful existence. Each of them, placed in the outside world, can cause a sensation. They are either the overlord of one party, or the patriarch of a family, a high position. Either some hermit master. But these people, as agreed, gathered on a street today, and got into a seemingly small shop together. And in this small shop, a strong man with a terrifying aura sat upright, quietly sitting in his position, waiting. At this time, the Wanji auction house has taken on a completely new look. The first is the area, which can now fully accommodate tens of millions of people to be auctioned at the same time. Many VIP positions have also been added, all of which are separate rooms to facilitate the concealment of identities. After all, many people don't want what they have bought to be seen by others. The booth was also set up in the center of the auction house so that everyone can see the exhibits. Today, the 10,000 Worlds Auction House conducts 2 auctions every day, and the auctioned goods are naturally things collected from other worlds, as well as spoils from past and present. Of course, occasionally at the finale, there will be a life-extending flat peach, or Bodhi seeds and other goods for sale. However, these goods cannot be sold too much. In the early days of the plant business, Su 1.7Z had to sell a lot of cosmic treasures every day in order to broaden his network and gain fame. But now, in order to whet everyone's appetite and prevent the overflow of items, it is natural to sell a little occasionally. And just a few days ago, Suzy suddenly notified all the larger families. The plant trading company will launch the first 10,000 realms auction in 3 days. Although the reason used was nonsense such as gratitude, feedback, and celebrations from the plant business, but the goods to be auctioned were enough to make everyone tempted. Not to mention anything else, just the longevity pantau, there are 3 of them. There are countless other treasures. And this is only a part of the auction. For the rest of the heavyweight goods, Susie only wrote a, "Stay tuned." It whets one's appetite. And today, it was the auction time he had promised. Report, 74%. Chapter 41. The auction begins, the advantages of Marshall Soul units. Mr. Lee, how are you doing these days? It turned out to be Senator Wong. I heard that you have broken through the high god. I haven't had time to congratulate you yet. Where, this Shendu, you still have to rely on Mr. Lee's ability, so we little fish can be at ease, ha 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 ha. Bring each other, support each other. Some people flatter each other. HMPH, I didn't expect you, a small middle god family, to dare to participate in this 10,000 Realms auction conference. Don't you be afraid of losing your family property and not earning a chance. Too long, you are just a middle god, but you have a half-step high god ancestor, and you haven't stepped into the realm of a high god after all, so why are you pretending to me here? You. After my family's ancestor becomes the upper god, you have to kill everyone in your family. You just wait, as long as I get a Bodhi seed or enlightenment tea at the auction, I can speed up my practice, which is even better than your ancestors stepping into the upper god 01. You wait. When someone's enemy met, they were extremely jealous. Husband, our child has only 100 years left to live. If there is no life-extending flat peach, I am afraid it will be difficult to become a god in this life. You must save him. Oh, I know, it's really difficult for me, a child of a middle god, to become a lower god. It's really. Husband, how can you say that? Being able to become a god is a very rare existence. I am afraid that there is hardly one in a million worlds. Although our children have enough talent, they still lack resources, otherwise they would have become gods long ago. Ahem, don't worry, lady, I will go bankrupt this time and win a life-extending flat peach. Someone whispered and coaxed. Although I have become a god, I am only the lowest low-level god, and my strength is the lowest level among the gods. It seems that my lifespan is unlimited and I am free. But in this universe, there is really no freedom. As long as someone is stronger than me, they can plunder my life at will. I can't become the middle god in my life, but I can become the best among the lower gods. I heard that before, the plant trading house auctioned many treasures from different worlds. These treasures and spiritual objects all carry the rules of other worlds. For me, they are excellent materials for enlightenment. I don't want to buy a life-extending flat peach and other cosmic treasures, but I just want to take more treasures from other worlds. Someone is looking forward to it. Most people sat quietly and waited. Only a handful of people entered the VIP private room under the leadership of the waiter. Ordinary high gods are not qualified to sit in that small room, their strength must be at least, God King. Even a high god can only sit in a row of chairs. You must know that a powerhouse like a high god is a peerless powerhouse who is praised wherever he goes. It's too late for others to flatter. Except for the negligence of the plant business, other organizations probably don't have such a long history. What's strange is that these high gods still look flattered, and they don't dare to take the attitude of a strong man at all. People can't help but wonder, what kind of existence is the boss of this plant business, and he has such energy. Suddenly, the small chatter on the field stopped abruptly. The booth at the center of the auction house lit up, and a bunny maid with a hot figure and a sweet smile appeared in front of everyone along with a counter. Hi everyone, today is still the auctioneer Ash serving everyone. This 10,000 Worlds Auction Conference was brought to you by Mr. Su. As he said that, a young man who looked very easygoing slowly walked out of the price at the highest part of the auction house, looked at everyone's eyes, smiled slightly, and raised his glass full of fine wine. Is this the boss of the plant business? Looks young. So hot. HMPH, looks don't count for big people like this. Although the way to maintain their appearance is precious, in their eyes, it's just a tip. Yes, maybe this Suzy, although he looks like a young man, is actually a million-year-old man. That's right. Nonsense. Suzy's aura is obviously just a mortal lord, how could he have lived for 1,000,000 years? HMPH, great people like to hide their aura, and many of them have eccentricities. What's the point of pretending to be a mortal lord? I have also seen a god king who likes to dress up as a mortal farmer to farm. How can you, a mere god, understand such things? The mind of a great man. That's right, if Suzy wasn't strong, how could he have produced so many cosmic treasures? I heard that he is still related to the existence of the God Emperor, could it be? Shish, how can we talk casually about those strong people? Everyone was amazed at Suzy's youth. However, in his words, he was regarded as a tyrannical old monster with eccentricities. But Suzy didn't care too much. Soon, after Xy's introduction, the first collection was displayed. A special unit from another world, Martial Soul. Everyone was attracted by the things on the booth. Wahan comes from a world of complete physical rules where no gods have been born. The energy is very special and powerful. You can feel these breaths. While Ash was introducing, she played a scene on the big screen of the auction house. In the picture, there are two girls who look like 247, squinting their hands and beheading an incomparably huge fleshy beast. Earth-shattering, powerful and tyrannical. The biggest feature of the martial soul is that it has strong adaptability. After using this kind of arms, the martial soul that grows will be suitable for the current environment. For example, if your territory is a fire-type awakened creature, then these martial spirits will tend to become any fire-type troops immediately. Even the legendary vermilion bird and bifang are possible. Many people were secretly surprised. This characteristic, Field Sub-Room C. The nature of the general arms and the extent to which they can grow are all predetermined. For example, the troop, Mushu Puppet, is born as a wood attribute troop and can only exist in a wood attribute territory, otherwise it cannot grow. And its growth level is only 1,000 to 5,000 levels at most. Any more, just not that potential. And this kind of martial spirit is a bit interesting. Not only can he adapt to the attributes of the territory by himself, but he can also awaken into any kind of martial spirit. Although everyone knows that the probability of the so-called, even awakening to become bifang, vermilion bird, is definitely very small. But it's definitely possible to hold back this martial soul. It belongs to a major advantage of the Lord who mainly uses human C tactics. Report, 74%. Chapter 42. Unexpected appearance, the crazy Fang Tong. Thinking of this, someone immediately bid 1 billion source crystals to buy 100,000 units. I offer 2 billion, 100,000 spirits. 3 billion. Soon, the price keeps rising. This martial soul is just an ordinary quality weapon, but it is really unexpected that it can be auctioned for such a terrifying price. Even Suzy was a little surprised. This martial soul was originally a spoil of war in Soul Fighting Continent. After turning that place into his own shrine world, coupled with Dalu Lian's control, even if a god is born in the future, it can only be his subordinate god. A pleasant surprise. Suzy smiled lightly. The first item to be auctioned caused a lot of contention, and at this moment the atmosphere in the venue became lively, and everyone seemed to be interested. The first auction item is so extraordinary. Next, fixation is not inferior to it. Soon, under everyone's expectant eyes, the second auction item appeared. In the booth, there is an air mass exuding blue light. The faint blue light spots are like stars in the night sky, and they are more like the Milky Way when they run. This thing, called the Blue Star Sea, is a treasure from a different world. It can be used by hero units, or by the Lord himself. The function of this thing is to purify energy, and it has a very strong growth potential. The starting price, 5 billion source crystals, and each bid must exceed 100 million source crystals. After Ash finished speaking, the people at the table began to quote. 10 billion source crystals, 2 billion. 25 billion. The role of the blue sea of stars, to the Lord, is neither big nor small. Some lords have relatively rich resources, and the scale can be further expanded by using the blue star sea. And some families, seeing its ability to refine pure energy, want to auction it back and use it as a super-sized furnace to refine resources. But no matter what, the blue sea of stars also caused a lot of competition. One auction item was bought. Among them, most of them are different world treasures. Or a bead, or a volume of exercises, or a door. These things are the top treasures of the original world. Under the operation of thousands of arms sprinkled by Suzy, they fell into his hands. These otherworldly treasures are all extraordinary. Not only do they have powerful effects, they are also contaminated with luck and rules from other worlds. For a lord or god, if you want to improve your strength, there is nothing better. After a few hours, finally, in the eyes of everyone's anticipation, a counter carrying 3 flat peaches finally rose slowly and was exposed in front of everyone. Aishi also showed a sweet smile. Is everyone waiting in a hurry? That's right, this is the important item of this auction, longevity pantau. The rules of this auction are. Ash hadn't finished speaking when she was interrupted by an impatient voice in the VIP room. What nonsense, bitch, hurry up and tell me the price. This voice was very insolent, with a hint of greasy taste, like a local emperor who was used to being superior, bossing around, and looked at people with contempt. Ash frowned, then quickly recovered her smile, and continued with the introduction. As if nothing had happened. But before she had time to say another half sentence, that rampant voice sounded again. Smelly bitch, I told you to start directly. Are you deaf? Dare to play with me? Be careful that I bought you and put you at home to torture slowly. Hearing this, everyone frowned. Who dares to be so rampant? Sitting in the VIP room, is it the king of gods? No, it's just the upper god who looks at the breath. How can a high god deserve to sit in a VIP room? This man's voice seems very strange, not like any god king on our side. Finally, someone seemed to think of something and reacted. I see, it turned out to be that guy. Who? The person next to him quickly asked a question, and everyone around him also poked their heads over. The insider whispered. I met this guy yesterday. He is the patriarch of a big family in another domain, named Fang Tong. It is said that his family's arms can produce a very rare resource, so the business is very big, and the money is so rich that even a god master can't compare to it. And he is just a high god. Everyone was amazed. The insider continued talking. However, he has also created a very rampant character, and he always looks like he has his eyes above his head wherever he goes. I didn't expect that I would dare to act wild here today. Presumably, I am an outsider who doesn't know the details of the plant business. The crowd was whispering, and a loud voice interrupted their conversation. Enough, guest, please leave. Suzy stood at the highest position in the auction house, looking indifferently at Fang Tong in the private room. The first time he uttered insults, Suzy was about to punish him, but it was Aishi who didn't take it seriously and endured it. And the second time, Fang Tong even molested the staff of Wanji Auction House, which was like challenging Suzy's prestige. As soon as the words came out, there was a burst of wild laughter in the VIP room. Ha 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 ha, I laughed so hard. Fang Tong walked out of the room with a belly laugh, and taunted Suzy. I said, we will give you face and accompany you to auction longevity flat peaches here. You won't take it seriously. Do you think of yourself as us? Let me tell you, little guy, what this world pays attention to is strength. You are just a lord, and if you have such a rare treasure, you should give it to the strong. How dare you take it out for private auction? It's a rebellion. Fang Tong sneered, and in his words, he actually encouraged other gods to come and snatch the longevity peach together. The so-called common man is innocent, but pregnant is guilty. Suzy is just a lord, even the subordinate Shendu is not good Zhao, how can he deserve to have these good things? Fang Tong is very confident. Human nature is inherently greedy. At the level of the gods, there are not many things that can tempt them. As for the longevity pantao, which makes gods and kings crazy, as long as I am the leader, I will pierce this layer of window paper, afraid that other gods will not follow. Fang Tong looked around, thinking he could see the greed in the eyes of a group of people. These people seemed to be looking at a monster, staring at him with strange eyes. No, not monsters, rather, dead people. Fang Tong was a little at a loss, but his always arrogant nature made him unable to back down, so he could only bluff and say, Suzy, if you are sensible, you should obediently hand over the Yansho Pantao, then kneel on the ground and admit your mistake, otherwise what do you want? Suddenly, a faint voice came from another VIP room. Report, 74%. Chapter 43. Shot. God King's favor. Fang Tong's face suddenly changed. He owns many assets and controls the output of an important resource, so he is barely qualified to enter the VIP room with only the strength of the upper god. And in the other VIP rooms, they are all genuine god kings. Although in the eyes of many people, Fang Tong is no different from ordinary god kings, rich, powerful, and of high status, anyway, he is an existence that he can't afford to provoke. But only Fang Tong knows in his heart, his status is a little higher than that of ordinary high gods. But meeting the real god, like other high gods, they can only be trembling. Fang Tong shivered, saluted the distinguished guest who made the sound, and then said respectfully, My lord, I just want to teach this lord a lesson, he is just. Before he finished speaking, the king of gods came out from the VIP room. He was a middle-aged man who looked very dignified. He was more than 3 meters tall, and his complexion had a faint golden color. Metal cast. The king of gods walked in front of Fang Tong, a trace of displeasure flashed in his indifferent eyes, and he interrupted directly, Lesson. You are worthy of a high god. You don't think that you can be complacent if you have some money, right? Fang Tong broke out in a cold sweat, his ankles were trembling, and 320 couldn't utter a complete sentence, My lord. I really didn't mean to offend you, I just feel like. The god king snorted coldly, and a powerful aura emanated from his body, like a mountain peak, pressing heavily on Fang Tong's body. The coercion of the god king made Fang Tong feel as if he fainted, and he collapsed on the ground. Although he barely retained his consciousness, he couldn't even utter a word, he could only hum. The king of gods was silent for a while, and suddenly said to Suzy on the summit, Mr. Su, this is your place. How do you think this party should deal with it? Suzy waved his hand lightly. Although Fang Tong is rampant, he is not guilty of death. Beat him up and throw him out. He is not allowed to enter the plant business in the future. 11. The God King also nodded, but it was too cheap for him to do such a thing, but soon several discerning high gods rushed to beat Fang Tong, and finally drove out of the plant business with curses. Seeing all this was done, the King of God cupped his fists in the direction of Suzy to express his friendliness, and then walked into the VIP room. Seeing this scene, some people couldn't help Adej whispering. This King of God seems to be Maudley, the head of the Maud family. He seems to be very polite to Suzy, and he still intends to please him. This is strange. Although Suzy is powerful and can produce so many cosmic treasures, he is just a lord. How can he make the King of Gods bow down? Someone said, feeling very strange. But those who know the truth are talking about it. What do you know? Listen to me. Some time ago, there was also a high god who wanted to commit murder in the plant business, wanted to snatch rare treasures and then ran away. Guess what? With a breath of breath, the upper god Wind Demon was suppressed to death. Hearing this, some people showed curious expressions. Feng Mo, I know this guy, but he is a notorious bandit. Although he is only a high god, his awakened arms are very strange. Even ordinary god kings can't match his speed. Of course, some people don't believe it at all. HMPH, just blow it. It came from the shattered void, and you can suppress it to death with just a ray of breath. Even if there is a god king, it is not so terrifying. I saw that person waved his hand faintly. Of course the god king can't do it, because the one who made the move is the god emperor. Stop bragging. God emperors exist, and there are only a few of them in total. Usually, the dragons don't see their heads and tails, so why are they willing to come to Shendu? The man showed an unfathomable expression, and said directly, you don't know that, because this god emperor exists, who claims to be the ancestor of Suzy, and said in front of everyone. We need to send an avatar to guard here to ensure that no one else dares to do anything to Suzy. I happened to be there at the time, and I was lucky enough to see that scene, so I know. You don't know, the power of the god emperor is really. Everyone was dumbfounded. I see. Everyone is curious why Suzy can come up with so many things that make the existence of the God King crazy. It is also possible to form such a plant business in Shendu. There is a God Emperor behind the relationship. No wonder so. To know, in the eyes of most people, the God Emperor is already the pinnacle of the universe's strength. Few people even know about the existence of the Supreme Ruler. Even if they know it, most of it is because they regard it as a legend. Because they are not qualified to know and meet the Master at all. As for the existence of the God Emperor, although he is extremely noble, he still has activities occasionally, so he has become the most powerful representative in the hearts of ordinary people. And behind Suzy, there was actually a God Emperor standing, which surprised many people, but also made many people nod slightly. Sure enough, an ordinary lord would not be able to produce so many cosmic treasures. If a God Emperor exists, although it is a bit exaggerated, as long as he lives long enough, it is not impossible. Plant collar. This auction, if it wasn't for that Fang Tong disrupting the situation, maybe it can be sold for a higher price. Suzy stood under the world tree, checking the source crystals obtained this time. There are more than 460 billion source crystals, which is enough for him to support him for a period of time. Most of the source crystals earned this time came from a series of rare treasures such as longevity flat peaches. But what Suzy didn't expect was that some treasures from different worlds were also so popular, accounting for almost 1/5 of the sales. Soon, Suzy came to a conclusion. I ignored these things before. After all, most of these otherworldly treasures are useless to me, and they are easily available. Suzy has too many treasures. Not to mention anything else, just a few supreme plants. If the hostile Supreme Master finds out, then he will be regarded as the first lord in history to be hunted down by several masters. After all, it's only a matter of time before you grow into a strong man with these magical plants. And those countless golden buildings. Time house, any door. It allows Suzy to go to any other world where the coordinates are known. This is the envy of many people. You know, most of the original material world is extremely foreign. Even in most other worlds, foreign gods are not allowed to enter, and local gods are not allowed to go out. Report, 74%. Chapter 44. Test the coordinates, encounter the behemoth in the starry sky. After all, the rules of the world are running, and everyone is afraid of being destroyed. As for the foreign lord level, although it can also enter through various methods. But once you enter the different world, you will be suppressed by your strength. A lord at level 99 may not be as powerful as a power emperor at level 90. And so are the arms. Only when you are invaded by another world like before, such as Soul Fighting Continent, and you have no other choice, do you ask for help through heaven, allowing foreign troops to enter, and rewarding luck. Other worlds are very repulsive to outsiders. But Suzy is different. His usual unit tokens are basically used in every corner of the universe, see. There are all demiplanes, there is no independent law of heaven, and the universal will is the will of the universe. As for those material worlds that have their own will, Suzy's approach is to choose the one with better luck, and then make an agreement with him, let him grow on his own. Due to Suzy's strong support and the favor of luck, he rarely made mistakes in this move. It is also whether it can bring precious treasures from another world. These treasures contain the complete rules of the other world, and they are simply perfect comprehension for those lords and gods who want to comprehend and grow. Many even have their special uses. Just like the Han Li I've seen before, the green vial around his neck is an incredible treasure. Suzy could faintly feel that that thing could even speed up the growth of his own plants. Different worlds. The more the better. Suzy made up his mind, took out all the coordinates captured by the paper boat during this period, and tried them one by one. Come to any door. Put in the coordinates. After paying 1 billion source crystals, the brilliance flickered and brought Sue into another world. But to his disappointment, this world is a very ordinary technological world, and even the main race is not human beings, and their technological development is barely enough to navigate within the galaxy, which is not worth mentioning. A world without people practicing is basically a waste for lords like them. Because no one practices, there is no way to produce the will of heaven. Exit this world in disappointment, and return to any door. I don't know if it was bad luck, but I tried 3 or 4 world coordinates in a row. In these worlds where Suzy came, either no one practiced, or there were only some countless existences who practiced body. This is the last coordinate. If it is still useless, it will be miserable, and it will cost tens of billions of source crystals, and there will be no gain. Suzy sighed helplessly, but still paid Yuanjing, activated any door, and came to another world. Call. The figure of Suzy landed on a savage planet. This planet, like a rubble pile, is very barren, and there is hardly any life on it. Let go of your mind. Suzy was about to check the rules of this world, so as to know if there is a civilization of practice, but who knows that it hasn't come yet. He stood still, trembling under his feet. Suzy flew into the air in a hurry, looked down, only to find that there was a huge head protruding from the place where he was standing just now. This head, if you look closely, it is at least 1,000 meters long, and as the body of this giant beast sticks out, the length of its entire body is at least 10,000 meters long. This behemoth, it looks like a scaly dinosaur, somewhat similar to Tyrannosaurus rex. However, its claws are not small, and they are relatively well coordinated, and its tail is very long. The eyes on the head are faintly blood red, and it looks like a bloodthirsty nature at first glance. And his whole body is surrounded by faint golden lines, revealing a trace of the rules of a different world. This scaly dinosaur, as soon as it appeared, looked like a human being, knelt down, put its hands on its chest, and shouted, "Excuse me, Senior. The planet has an atmosphere, so sound can travel." And Suzy, during the time when the alien beast appeared, also comprehended some rules of heaven and earth, and also mastered the common language of this world, so he could understand what he said. "Senior, why do you call me Senior?" Suzy stood in midair and said calmly. The giant beast was stunned for a moment, but said honestly, "Senior's teleportation just now is obviously an act after comprehending the original law of the superior, and the breath was deliberately hidden, so I dare not hide, so I can only show up to plead guilty." Suzy suddenly realized, in this universe, not only is there a civilization of practice, but the background of practice is not shallow. Like the giant beast in front of him, I'm afraid it's not its peak strength. 0. Ask for flowers. Moreover, the law of heaven is relatively harsh, and even large space teleportation can only be activated by high-ranking powerhouses. Suzy asked casually, "What's your name? What race are you?" The giant beast prostrated itself on the ground, and honestly replied, "My name is Jin Feng, and I am one of the starry sky giant beasts from the Jin Yang clan. My current level is the domain master's consummation, and I am about to reach the pinnacle." Although he didn't know why this senior asked these questions, after all, for the strong, the information of the weak can basically be seen through at a glance, but Jin Feng still chose to answer honestly. Suzy comprehended the rules of heaven and earth here, and listened to Jin Feng's talk, and only then did he have a basic understanding of the world. This is a huge universe. There are thousands of races and countless strong men. Among them, the level of practice is divided into apprentice, planet, star, universe, domain master, world master, and after that is the existence of immortal gods. This immortal god is similar to the god of the universe C. Once it reaches this state, it will have no worries about lifespan and live the same life as the heaven and the earth. But relatively speaking, the level of this world is not as good as the universe C. After all, one is the origin, and this world is only one of its vassals. Therefore, relatively speaking, the immortal gods will be relatively weaker. Even, this difference will be more obvious if it really comes to the universe C. Even if Su Zi's strength is suppressed, he can sense that in a certain direction, there is the immortal god, that Jin Feng said. And there are countless races in the universe. For example, Jin Feng is one of the pinnacle races, the starry sky behemoth. The star behemoth is extremely powerful. At birth, it is planetary, juvenile, stellar, and after reaching adulthood, they can successfully enter the universe level and become the overlord of one party. And these are just giant beasts in the starry sky, eating, drinking and sleeping every day, without any growth rate under the condition of cultivation. If you practice a little bit, the starry sky behemoth can easily step into the domain lord, or even the world lord level. And as the pinnacle behemoth of Jin and Fire's laws, Jin Feng, although born as a Jin Yang behemoth, practiced hard every day, and finally entered the domain master level smoothly after he became an adult. But, this world is a world of human corpses. Report, 75%. Chapter 45. Breeding clones, the wind dominates the genius battle in the star area. According to Jin Feng, since a few epochs ago, the pride of mankind and the strongest in the universe, Lord of the Galaxy Luo Feng, went to reincarnation, the power of mankind has become more and more powerful, and there is even a faint intention to annex all races in the universe. Outstanding momentum. I know that Luo Feng saved the universe and killed all the beasts, but he can't let humans be so rampant. You know, he himself has a golden-horned behemoth avatar, and he can be regarded as half of our starry sky behemoth. Jin Feng was indignant and kept talking about it day and night. Su Zi couldn't help but laugh. This Jin Feng is also unlucky. Originally, as a behemoth in the starry sky, he may spend most of his time wandering, rarely getting guidance from his master and various resources. Although born strong, it can't be compared to human beings. There are too many strong people, countless resources, and higher understanding. That's how 480 came about. Su Zi nodded, and asked suddenly, but I haven't had time to ask you, what are you doing here? Jin Feng was stunned for a while before replying, Senior, I am conceiving a clone. Clone is a very rare talent in this universe. Those who have this kind of talent are generally the top few races in the universe, such as starry sky behemoths. Talented people can use a piece of genetic information to breed a clone in their own body world. This avatar, like the deity, is connected with the soul. Even if the deity dies in battle, as long as the avatar is not destroyed, it will still consume energy, and will soon condense to give birth to another deity. And the avatar died in battle, and it can also be bred in the same way. Moreover, depending on the genetic information used, the clones bred have various abilities. Just like that Galaxy Lord Luo Feng. When he was still at the planetary level, it was a blessing in disguise, and he got a golden-horned monster clone. From then on, he could grow his strength just by swallowing metal, which is equivalent to having all the talents of the golden-horned Kuman. The benefits gained are countless. However, the generally selected avatars either have strong strength or have special uses. It is still very rare for Jin Feng to secretly breed avatars in a corner like Jin Feng. Su Zi couldn't help being curious. Jin Feng was a little ashamed, and he stuttered a lot before telling the whole story. It turned out that he was engaged in a genius battle. Geniuses from various races of more than 10 billion galaxies in the 300,000 star field of the Fengdu star region came here to participate in 10 future battles under the call of the Master Fengdu. The purpose is naturally to select talents, and those who are at the top can get many benefits. And Jin Feng wandered around since he was a child, he was curious for a while, and he was greedy for many reward resources, so he participated in this selection competition. At the beginning, relying on the innate secret arts of the Jin Yang clan and his own strength, Jin Feng was able to handle it with ease. But later, a human genius, for some reason, opposed him everywhere, always confronting him, making things difficult for him everywhere. Jin Feng was so forced that he wanted to launch a genius battle, but he was reluctant to part with the resources that were about to be obtained. He thought about giving birth to a clone, and then challenged that human genius. After all, with the avatar, the strength will be more convincing. However, Jin Feng also knew that his behavior was equivalent to self-destructive future. There is no other reason. In order to conceive a clone as soon as possible, Jin Feng could only hastily choose a plant race, blood rain vine, whose life level is only 20 times that of human beings. Although this kind of plant life can be regarded as a difficult opponent at the level of world masters and domain masters, because its innate secret method, blood rain, carries a hint of deterrence of space law, which can slow down people in a large area. But once they reach the level of immortality, everyone has mastered the law of space, and the superficial space secret art of blood rain vine is already a tasteless existence. In other words, if Jin Feng conceived it as a clone, once it reached the immortal level, the clone would be completely useless. It's like folding your own arm. Su Zi looked around. The force in this world is quite powerful, and I can't understand the rules in a short time. My own strength is too oppressed here, so let's choose a seed. Thinking of this, Su Zi looked at Jin Feng, who was prostrate in front of him, and showed a satisfied smile. Want to make a deal? The wind dominates the star region. The center of the cowardly empire. This is the area where the ruler of the entire star area, Feng Du Immortal, is located, and it is also the location of this talent selection competition. In the central area of the Aoyao Empire, a tower with a diameter exceeding hundreds of millions of kilometers rises from the ground, surrounded by several planets. The diameter of this tower alone exceeds hundreds of millions of kilometers, and its length reaches an astonishing 1 light year. Feng Du Immortal himself spared no expense to create a cosmic spectacle together with digital immortals. Named Star Observation Tower, it is also a treasure that pays tribute to Luo Feng, the strongest human being. There are hundreds of millions of people living in the Star Observation Tower, and this genius battle is held in it. Among them, on the most prosperous streets, there are various races walking. There are the most common human beings, as well as mechanical races, rock life, and even rare starry sky behemoths with a height of more than 1,000 meters, and they are occasionally seen among them. Feng Du Immortal, although he is a human being, is very lenient towards other races. It is said that one of his wives was a foreign race, so he allowed all races to participate in this genius battle. And on this street, Jin Feng looked around for a while, looking at the densely packed pedestrians. His indifferent eyes showed a trace of fatigue, and then he was about to leave. Jin Feng did not reveal the real body of the golden-horned monster, but turned into a human form, which looked like a strong black-haired man with a height of more than 2 meters, which was nothing special. Just as he was about to leave, a voice suddenly sounded behind him. Jin Feng, you bastard, you haven't quit the Genius 1.1 battle yet. Jin Feng turned around and saw 3 or 4 people walking towards a green-haired young man. The green-haired young man is very handsome, and there are traces of secret lines wrapped around his face, which makes him look softer and mysterious, with a different kind of charm. However, Jin Feng was furious when he saw this. Doro, I don't want to be your enemy, why bother to force me so? This green-haired man, Doro, is the human genius who has been obstructing him. Doro snorted coldly. Forcing you? When have I ever forced you? If you are not convinced, you can completely give up the qualification for the genius battle right now. After all, several men and women around me laughed together. That's right, you are a giant starry sky beast, why did you come to participate in the human genius battle? Alien, humans are the most powerful race in the universe, so don't mess with them. Powerful race in the universe, so don't mess with them. Powerful race in the universe, so don't mess with them. Powerful race in the universe, so don't mess with them. Powerful race in the universe, so don't mess with them. Powerful race in the universe, so don't mess with them. Powerful race in the universe, so don't mess with them.